Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night Reef Talk live stream, where I am just going to be testing my microphone for just 1 second to make sure the audio is right. There we are, it's all good. So, how are we, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday night Reef Talk live stream, where I'm joined by Ryan from Prestige Reef tonight. Ryan, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am very well.
I like how we have to pretend we haven't just had a half an hour conversation.
I know, yeah, that's the thing. I'm feeling like I'm just gonna do that just for 1 second and see how the audio is, because I think that it's like, oh, there we go. Hang on, just give me 1 second, because it doesn't sound as good in. No, I think I'm using the wrong mic, but it doesn't matter. We'll carry on because it sounds a little bit. So it sounds in my ears. It sounds awesome.
I can hear you exactly the same as normal. So I don't know if everyone else can hear
it's different. I think it sounds a bit tinny on the live stream actually, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So we'll carry on. Actually, if there's anyone who's got a sensitive ear for audio, good quality audio, say if my mic sounds a little bit tinny. A couple of people are saying it sounds kind of quiet. I'm okay with the volume. That's not the normal mic sound people are saying. Right, okay, in which case, Ryan, Phil, I need you to fill for 30 seconds whilst I play with a few things.
Phil, what am I supposed to talk about? What I actually do like, I just saw Les's comment, which just says controversial opinion. Ryan has too much hair for the hobby. Look at Mr. Dork, Sean, Acroman, and I am bald. So maybe that's true. but yeah, let's have a look. I should probably be cleaning my filter and checking on my water. I'm actually doing a water change at the moment. So those of you that have seen how I do a water change on the farm, you know how easy it is. Where Alex said to me a minute ago, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "This was about 15 minutes before we started," and I said, "I'm just doing a water change." So
this is your 5-minute water change. Do you know what? I can't change that. So I think actually this microphone is not working, and that I'm getting audio through somewhere else. So I'm going to try a little lav mic. The annoying thing with this is when you check beforehand and you do all the tests, it will everything sounds wicked, and then when you go live, it's different. So I'm hearing something different to what I would be hearing otherwise. Anyway,
do you know what I've just realised?
What's that?
I haven't got my. Remember, I got that special mic for this.
Yeah.
This one, it's not plugged in. so you know how we were both we're both very professional. Right, this might stop working now. Let's see.
Hang on.
1 second. Audio.
Right, I think now that you might be getting audio through this lav mic. It might not be. It might be.
I think you do sound more normal now. And
really?
And people will have to let me know if my one sounds more normal, because it's now on and it says that it is.
But this is the problem with testing it, and I'm sure there are ways of doing it. But you, to me, sound exactly the same as you did 5 seconds ago. So I'm just gonna try 1 second listening to.
People are saying yes, that's better, but who's it better for? Is it better for me or Alex? Because we both seem to have problems.
Well, this is much better, both of you, I think people are saying.
Okay.
And I'm just going to keep talking for a second till it starts playing through my. There we go. Right, fantastic.
Yeah,
okay,
professionals.
Do you know what? I'm going to push that out of the way now. And I'll have to look out, because if now I think this will be coming through this microphone here, but if it's suddenly gone really quiet, I'm going to watch the chat to see if people say, "Mate, you've gone really quiet because your microphone's moved away." But I think I've stuffed it up. I spent ages playing with this yesterday, and it turns out I didn't get it right. But anyway, Ryan, hello. I didn't hear anything you said because I was concentrating on other things.
We shall start again, shall we? I was only pointing out that someone said that I have too much hair for the hobby compared to many other people in it, apparently. I'm assuming
me and Sean, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm being accused of amateur hour.
Well, both of us, yes.
Exactly, yeah. And looking like an 80s DJ.
with headphones hanging off the head. Look like Pat Sharp, only, obviously a little bit less hair. So, and no one's complaining. So it must mean that this is the right microphone and my one over there is off. So there we go. We're all good. I'll work that out next week and it will be better. Admit it, Mr. Dork, you're watching TV. I'm not watching TV. Outrageous. So first off, this is going to be today about controversial opinions. And what I want is for everybody watching this in the chat, obviously in the live chat, or share your comments afterwards, but in the live chat, share your most controversial opinions and we will discuss those as well. That went down really well last time and there were some crackers there. But I'm going to start with member questions. And this is, I've not shared any of these with you, Ryan. So
I'm even more nervous because you said you got a game for me a minute ago. What Alex does is he tells me just before the show what we're going to do, but he won't tell me what in detail. He just said, I've got a game for you, and I'm not sure what that entails.
Yeah, well, let's find out. First off, we'll start with the questions. So this is member questions. If you're a member of my YouTube channel, I post the live stream photo and you guys can ask priority questions. The first one, I've had my tank up for 4 months now, following both of your channels. Reef Talk a bit more, winky face.
That's because you've got more videos. So
very true. What coral would you recommend for my first coral? Thanks for the fun times. And this is Bubbly Reef.
Well, is this a question for me or are you going to answer first?
Both. You go first because you run a coral farm. So.
Okay, it depends on if it's your very, very first coral ever, then you want something that's reasonably easy. So most people start with soft corals. I actually think green star polyps is a brilliant starter coral, providing that it's kept off the rock. So the best thing to do is have a little rock by itself. It's brightly coloured. It moves in the flow, so it grabs your attention. And although eventually you will probably go, I feel like I've moved past this, it's a great coral to start with because you can actually see the growth. And seeing growth at first it makes you feel so good, doesn't it? So if you get something that's a bit slower growing, say like a frog spawn or something, you don't really get that same feeling because they don't grow as fast, if you see what I mean.
No, and I think soft corals for sure are a good way to start. And green star polyps. You said green star polyps, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend zoas because zoas are one of those things where sometimes they're okay and sometimes they're not, and it all depends on how much in a brand new tank. If it's very low nutrients, they don't always do well.
No, and so GSP is really tough. Yes. And if your tank water is no good for various reasons, you'll just be able to see this grey mat for weeks on end.
Yeah, and
then when you turn things around and fix it, it comes back out again.
What it actually does like, though, it likes lots of flow. So if it's not opening up, move it to an area where it's getting potentially more flow, and sometimes that is what does it, and it opens up. I learned that from the Inappropriate Reefer because it would grow in.
Oh, right.
He had like a drop-off tank. I think it was Inappropriate, and it would grow in certain parts, but the bits at the bottom where there was no flow because it was a drop-off, it wouldn't grow at all. So it couldn't be the lighting, really. It couldn't be anything other than the amount of flow it was getting, because obviously it's the same water, and the light was definitely strong enough. So I just thought I never knew that before I saw that video.
Interesting, and actually, I think flow is people with a new tank, with the first tank, underestimate flow, and often will only buy one very small power head. The question I get asked as much as any is X power head big enough for my tank? And it's always like a 4-foot tank with a small power head. And I'm like, no, you need 4 times as much as that, and actually, so I've set up the Fluval Evo, and I've seen loads of people saying that, you don't need a power head. You've got to just get a bigger return pump. That's wrong. In my opinion. I think it's much, much, much better to have a power head. But anyway, we're digressing. And we need to get onto controversial stuff. 2 more questions, though. BN3 Reefing, new Dorker here, previously Reef Rookie, wavy face. Question to bring controversy: which is better, the art behind Prestige Reef or the wallpaper behind Alex's tank?
I think the answer is clear for that. One of them is, classy, and
Thanks very much.
the other one is birds on the
appreciate the
wall.
compliment.
I have a question for you about your wallpaper. Actually, that wallpaper was there when you moved in, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
Would you have picked that wallpaper yourself?
No, but
So then it doesn't matter, does it?
No, I wouldn't, and I would rather paint the wall white behind it, but strip it because there's a tank in front of it. Stripping the wallpaper off is going to be a pain,
yeah.
And painting is going to be a pain. So I should have done it before I set up the tank, but I wouldn't have chosen it. But I've said this a few times. If this was like a modern flat in the centre of London, it would look stupid. But it's a 100-year-old cottage in Surrey, in a little village in Surrey. So it actually does, and like the rest of the house, it suits the yeah. Although I've got in the dining room, I've got fox hunting wallpaper.
And in the kitchen, there's chickens, isn't there? Or
there's chickens, various chickens. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A better question is which is better, the pictures behind me or the picture behind you of the clownfish? Because
mine are less controversial.
Yeah.
So that's the second question. There's one more, which is from Push Button Reef. And that's, do you suffer with outbreaks of red slime or hair algae, or have you ever found tank utopia? How do you deal with this, achieve it? Who has the better water between you?
Alex will have probably the better water out of the two of us. I'm almost certain that's true. And the reason for that is because my water will be far less stable. Because obviously all the time I have quite considerable amounts of water coming out, and I have RO water going back in, and then whereas it's running a farm is very different to running a tank where you do a water change once a week and you dose it and you leave it. Whereas in the farm, when you've got new corals coming in all the time, the dosing changes. And the other thing that changes is So if you imagine when I'm do a day of fragging, the slime and the chemicals that will be going back into the tank because of the dips, and it's definitely not the most healthy environment for a reef. I don't think having a farm, definitely not. Now, obviously, I try and get as much of that off before I put them back into the tanks. But after a day's fragging, you can see like a layer on top of the water.
Do you run carbon to get rid of that?
Yeah, I do run carbon. Yeah, but
I guess how often do you change it? Because you're not supposed to change it too often, are you?
To be fair, that's one of the things where I change sort of incrementally when I remember. It's not something
that
Usually I look at the water and go, looks slightly green today. They get that like slight tinge, and then that's. But you have to be careful when you're doing that, because when everything in our tanks are all connected, so you can easily damage your corals by putting carbon in. Not anything to do with the carbon, but because the carbon makes the water clearer, so the PAR increases. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the corals are getting far more light than they were before. So it's really interesting how everything is actually linked, and it's always, even with things like carbon, it's best to use very small amounts incrementally to do things slowly. Because most people will probably go, loads of carbon, throw it in, that'll do, and then just forget about it. And it's the same with Rowaphos and things like that.
The thing, so carbon's a pain in the backside, though. To change that every couple of days would be a pain. The way to do that, though, is get a small carbon reactor, put it on a plug timer, and have it come on for 1 hour a day, 5 days in a row or whatever.
Yeah, but are you then not going to have like a load of water sitting in it for 23 hours? It's just, I suppose, it's even with carbon. So what's the worst that can?
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, so back to the question. So the other question was, do you suffer with outbreaks of red slime or hair algae, and have you found tank utopia? I don't get red slime algae. I don't really get hair algae, but I have not found tank utopia. And I would respectfully suggest that anyone says they have is talking out their ass. So the only reason I don't have algae is because I've got algae eaters. I have algae in the tank. It's just it gets eaten. Tangs
exactly the same for me. Literally exactly the same. I don't have any red slime, or obviously red slime and green hair algae are very different things. But I've never suffered with either of them. But again, for the same reason, for the tanks. For the
if you're getting something like cyanobacteria or dinos, something's wrong. If you're just getting a funny type of algae, you've probably just brought it in on a fag bug. Doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means because it likes the same conditions as zooxanthellae algae from your corals.
some of the algae that come in on the coral is so different to what you would imagine, if you see what I mean. So there was a blue one that came in once, and I was just like, I have never seen. You know how you
Blue algae.
There's probably just as many corals, as many different types of algae as there are corals.
Huh? Yeah,
and they're all different shapes and sizes, and some of them are fluffy and some of them are round and different colors. But you don't see these because what happens is as soon as they come in, I cut them off.
Yeah.
And usually when they go into a tank, most tanks in fish shops have tangs in them, and they just eat them straight away.
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, when you first see them come in from the ocean, some of the stuff you see is crazy.
Huh.
That's my favorite part of doing this. It's like a mystery box every time for me.
Do you get like funny critters like
Yes.
stomatella snails and all these sorts of weird fan worms and sponges? And
you get some strange sort of like crabs. Like I think they were squat lobsters I had once. These little tiny things.
they're really cool.
I've got some. There's something that actually came from someone else's tank, and it's those Christmas tree worms that you get on those rocks.
Yeah.
I have a rock full of Christmas tree worms, and around the Christmas tree worms, there's some sort of crustacean, and it has like a shield, and it's not a mantis shrimp or anything like that. It's lit and they block the hole with their shield, and when the food goes in, they come out and eat it. It's some sort of lobster or something, and then they go back in and block the hole.
It's not a ghoul crab.
It could. I just said I don't know what it is, but
so for the benefit of those who don't know, this is a squat lobster, and they're tiny. They're like a centimeter across. Yeah. And so I bought one and never saw it again. I presume it died, but it might have just disappeared into my tank somewhere. But they're cool.
You get loads and loads of acro crabs as well, all different shapes and sizes and colors.
Proper acro crabs that are safe are so cool. I've got one in my tank.
They're like little whites with like what these ones are safe, but they're white with black, like a black
like
band
a bandit.
around the eyes. It looks like they're like ninjas or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, those. But you also get plenty of the not so good ones. But they're like the least pest of your worries, because if you see those, they're easy to see. So you can look at it and go, there's something in that, and then you just get it out. It's the things that you can't see which you have to worry about.
Nudibranchs that are the same color as the coral. Yeah,
nudibranch, all sorts of things. There's I had a conversation with Sean yesterday about the Ocean Project. It's like there's just there's so much stuff that comes in that people don't even know about. There's probably like 10 main ones, but then there's loads of things that could be in your reef tank now and you'd never even know.
There we go. Anyway, so that's the questions done, and now I want to play a game with you. The game is about your website, in fact.
Is it? Oh no! You're about to humiliate me, aren't you?
Prestigereef.co.uk.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is what game do you think I could be playing here?
It's either you're going to ask me the name of a coral, possibly, and see if I can describe it, because obviously they've all got crazy names.
Okay.
Or you can could be something to do with prices, I reckon, but I have no idea on prices. Even when people come and collect coral, I have to literally look on the website to tell them what the prices are.
So it's neither of those. The game is called. The game has got a name. The game is called Good Coral, Bad Photo.
Oh, okay. I should probably get my website up, shouldn't I? Or is that
no need. Don't you worry about that. I've got it. So
you're okay.
So this is the reason I'm doing this is because there are some corals on your website that I've seen in the flesh.
I know.
That what you're going to say. Absolutely awesome. And basically, I'm sure there will be some people go on your website and look past these corals because they're like, I don't know, they're great. Yeah. And I want to tell people. Basically, I'm trying to get you sales. But I also want people to see these corals that are absolutely amazing. So first one.
I knew that was the one you were going to say.
Dragon fruit cyphastria.
Yeah.
So actually, the one I've got, and I bought one from you, is it doesn't look like the photo on the right, but
it looks more like on the left.
Kind of, but it looks so much nicer than that. So much nicer. And I've said this a few times. When I went to your farm, like from across the room, I saw this glowing thing. I was like, dude, what's that?
Someone at Sean's place, actually the guy who works there called Ryan, said to me, Reef Dog's got this. He keeps raving about it, and I keep thinking about buying it. Do you know who Ryan is?
Yeah, I do know him. But it's funny that I obviously talk about it a lot. I didn't realise that. Second one.
is this.
I actually think that's an accurate photo.
Oh, it's these are. I'm not saying they're not accurate photos.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So that to me, those polyps look orange.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is a coral I bought from you, paid full price.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't even get a bloody discount. Didn't even get mates.
Of course not. You have to play. You actually get charged extra.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So those polyps look orange, whereas in the flesh they are bright red, like brilliant red. Yeah. And you very rarely see yellow and red corals. And the other thing with this photo, because you've touched it when you've picked it up, the polyps have gone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And that is so. This went on. I don't know how long you've had this, but this is a sort of coral that I would expect to sell like that as soon as you put it on your website because it's so nice.
I've got loads. That's one of the. I do sell a lot of that coral, but I also it's one of the ones I propagate the most. It grows really, really quickly, and it's and because I know it sells really well. There's certain ways you can propagate corals, so you can do it if it's a coral which is reasonably slow growing. I don't frag it. I'll frag it into maybe 5 pieces or 10 pieces. If it's something like that, I'll frag it into lots and lots of pieces because then each plug it grows. Corals grow faster the smaller they are. It's called microfragging. Yeah. It's not something that I advise. You also lose a lot more corals doing it, so it's debatable whether the amount that you lose is actually hard. You see what I mean? It counteracts the benefit from it. But I probably got like 30 pieces of that at the moment. But I sell them all the time.
There you go. So
what is interesting about those corals is that I've got 5, I think, different types of it. And everyone who comes into the coral room, they're all identical. They all look roughly the same. They're just different colors. And everyone wants a different one. And if I say to them, if they want the pink one, for example, with the white polyps, and then I say, that's interesting because everyone else wants the yellow one. They go, no, I don't like the yellow one. It's ugly. But you like the yellow one.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? So there were 2 others I was going to do as well, but we spent more time on it than I planned. And
I'm intrigued what they were anyway. So just let me know quickly.
This is feeling like more like a sales pitch than I wanted it to. The others there was a bright green Monty.
Is that the Montipora paloensis one?
Maybe. But it's like bright. It's the brightest green you've ever seen in your life.
Oh, is it plenty one? Yeah, I know which one it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one there was a witch hunter Monty, and the reason I put that on there, actually, it looks really good on the photo. Yeah. But the reason I put that as good coral, bad photo is because I know that that's 5 times the size in real life because it's an old photo.
They're all like that. They're literally all like that. When people get them, they go, "It's so much bigger than the picture." I'm like, yes, but if I took a picture and it was the big piece, and I sent someone a smaller piece, they would be disappointed. So it's better to show the smaller piece and then send them the big piece, and they're happy.
Anyway, there we go. So that's my little game that I wanted to play that you were worried about. You didn't need to be worried. See, would I be bad to you?
Yes, you would.
Yeah, maybe I would.
I'm awful to you most of the time.
I need to get revenge and do it when you're live on YouTube. So
no, it's this next bit. It's this next bit which is you're going to be awful to me because, as I said, it feels like I'm being led to the gallows.
Well, so this is the thing. So first off, I when I uploaded this live stream first, I don't know, a few days ago, I called it Ryan's most controversial opinion. Yeah. Because I'd forgotten that I had 2 more left over from the live stream we did the other couple of weeks ago. But you reminded me, and now I've changed it to our most controversial opinions part 2. So this is.
That's because I wasn't going to let you get away with it because I think it's controversial.
See, I don't think they are at all. But so I'll tell you, we'll start with mine because I think they're gentle. And we'll get into yours, which is deep.
Okay.
So I'm going to bundle them together because they're basically the same thing. And the headline that people will watch this, and as soon as I've said what the headline is, people will be like, "No, you're wrong." But hear me out because there's more to it.
I already know he's wrong. So, but just I'm willing to listen. So,
trace elements and feeding corals is stupid. Is the headline.
Okay, yeah.
Then there's a little asterisk.
Yeah.
And go. So the reason corals do eat coral food. That is a fact. Okay. Yeah. We've seen it with our own eyes. Anyone who's fed corals, you see them eat. Okay. Maybe you won't see SPS eat so much, but you can see LPS corals literally pushing food into their mouth, right? So we know that the corals eat food.
Yeah.
And we also know that they require trace elements. The elements in the sea, there's dozens and dozens of trace elements, far more than we can even test for with ICP. So they obviously use something. And if you analyze a coral skeleton, it's got, or no, actually, maybe it hasn't, but coral flesh has got all these trace elements. So they do use it. But the reason I say that feeding corals and trace elements are stupid is because if you're a beginner, if your tank is a year old or 2 years, less than a year old, let's say, people use it for the wrong purpose. So people will be like, I'll see it all the time, and I've been there as well. This isn't just criticizing people who are new to the hobby. I've done the same thing myself.
Yeah.
So this is, people will be like, I bought an SPS coral and it's gone brown. I wonder what that is. And they'll be like, I bet it's because I've got too much green in my light, or because I haven't got enough white. And then they'll go and change that and say, maybe the photo period's too long. So they'll turn the lights down for 2 hours a day. And then they'll be like, do you know what? I bet it's trace elements, because you'll watch a video with like Chris Meckley or whatever, and he'll talk about the importance of feeding corals and the difference it makes in the trace elements and the difference that makes. And it's right. And you will think to yourself, do you know what? That's what's missing. That is why my acros are looking rubbish. It's because I'm not feeding them. It's because I've not got trace elements.
Yeah.
When the reality is, those two things are the last things you should be doing, in my opinion. It's not that you shouldn't do it. It's they are the last things you should do once you have mastered your nutrients, nutrition. So the amount you're feeding your fish and all that sort of stuff, your flow, your lighting, all of the basics that actually make the world of difference. Only when you've done that should you be playing around with trace elements and feeding corals. And particularly with feeding corals, for most people, or for many people anyway, growth is a pain in the arse.
Yes.
when you first set up a tank, nothing grows, and you're like, I don't want to look at frags. Why are they so small? And then 3 months later, they haven't grown at all, and you're like, what's going on? But fast forward a year, the last thing you need is faster growth. So I'm dosing calquasa, and I have been for a while now, partly because it will increase growth, but I don't really want, if I could swap growth for health and coloration, I would. I don't really want more growth. Growth is a pain in the arse. So that's why I think that trace elements and feeding corals is stupid.
I, to some extent, do disagree with you, as you know, because we had this conversation yesterday. Mm-hmm. Having said that, how much food do I feed the corals at the moment? Nothing. My corals get fed nothing at the moment, because for two reasons. Firstly, in the SPS tray, I get too much growth, especially on the things like the digitata and hystrix and some of the montiporas. They grow too fast, so I have to try and slow that down. The other reason is because since I put those 40 fish in, the nutrients went up in those systems from all the fish. So there's more available nutrients in there for them already. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that it does definitely increase growth if you actively feed them. But as a beginner, that when you buy your first coral frag and then the shop sells you your first part of coral food, you don't need them.
No,
most people, to be fair, most people, you are right. They don't actually need to feed their corals. Most corals, if it's the first year of the hobby, then yes.
That's a good point as well, because it's not just. I still think for the first year of your tank, you shouldn't bother anyway. But if you're going to feed, if you insist on it, get something like, and this I bought this myself and all this. What was it? LPS coral pellets. And for feeding things like LPS, so this is what I feed my scully, because my scully was basically dead when I bought it, and I knew I could recover it. And that's what I feed. And if you feed directly, so you're not just feeding the entire tank and opening up to anything that's a filter feeder. If you turn all your flow off and put a couple of pellets in a trachea or a scully or an A-can, that is definitely beneficial for sure.
Yeah.
I still don't think you should be doing it in the first year or so, but you can see the impact.
It's one of those things where it's for an advanced person that knows what they're doing, there is benefit in it. But it's not something that everyone has to do to be successful, I think is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
The only corals which I actually do notice a big difference with trace elements is Goniopora. if with Goniopora, for whatever reason, it seems, I'm not sure which one it is. It's either manganese or molybdenum. One of those two trace elements does seem to have an impact. Now, that doesn't mean if you've got Goniopora issues, go out and grab those things, because again, as Alex said, these are the last things you should be checking, and you should be checking with an ICP test. Don't just blindly dose.
That's a really good point, actually, with trace elements, because one thing, so I can never keep gunnies. My tank, if I do say so myself, looks fucking awesome. At the moment, it's looking brilliant.
I actually agree. So.
I'm not just trying to big myself up, but it looks really good. The reason I'm saying this is because no matter how good it looks, and my acros look fantastic, I can't keep gunnies, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's trace element related. I've tried in the past target dosing manganese and iodine, but I've not done it. I don't think I've done it long enough to make a difference. I think you probably need to do that constantly, and if you do it manually, if you dose anything manually, you're going to get bored after 3 weeks and it'll be like, whereas if you
3 days.
well, exactly, yeah. Whereas if you put it on a dose or whatever, that's the way to do it. But I've tried trace elements on a number of times before, and actually I currently have the Tropic Marine A and K, A plus and K minus, whatever. Haven't started dosing them yet. I'm going to, but I've tried dosing trace elements at length in the past, and it might be that I've got the dosages wrong. It might be that I've done it in the wrong, or there might be something I'm doing wrong. But I've never noticed a difference when I've been dosing trace elements.
Whenever you dose something new, do you dose less than what's recommended?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I always do that because even though they tell you how much you should put in, I'm still thinking, I'm not sure I want to add this just in case.
But so if you're dosing, if you've got a dosing pump, it's so easy. So you just go, if it says you need 10 mil a day, put in 1 mil a day, and then a week later, tell the app to put in 2 mil a day, and then a week later, it's just so easy. Although I do wish the dosing pumps would allow you to ramp that up. So you say, do you know what? I want to dose 10 mil a day, but could you start dosing 1 mil a day and build up by 1 milliliter a week? So I don't have to log back in because I'll forget.
I've never thought about that. But that is an interesting. Yeah, but I suppose there is a benefit, obviously, because it makes it more stable if it does it that way. So yeah, I don't know why they don't do that, because they do it with lights. So why wouldn't they do it with dosing? So
there we go. But there we go. So and I'm sure there's one comment here that's a really good one as well. Actually, fish poop is plenty enough food for corals.
That's what they're getting in my tank at the moment.
So that's what they're getting in my tank as well. That's not necessarily the case for everybody, because like people like Tidal Gardens and ACI Agriculture feed a lot, amino acids in particular, and that's a business. So they're not going to be pouring in money into a tank if it's not going to do anything. So it is unquestionable, in my opinion anyway, that there is a benefit, and corals do need food in certain circumstances. But what I'm really saying is just you need to think about what you're trying to achieve, because in my tank, fish poo is plenty for corals. If you're trying to get rapid growth and polish, and if you've nailed everything, the 90%, the 95%, and you're just trying to top up and get that little bit more growth or a little bit more coloration or whatever, then you should be looking at things like trace elements and feeding. But fish poo is plenty for me, and I think you're better off, because it's so easy to overfeed. So if you're feeding your fish, that's great, and if you're overfeeding your corals as well, you're going to cause yourself problems if you don't know what you're doing, particularly.
I've just realized what I actually do as well is, so when I feed the fish, I feed them with a baster. So a lot of the corals, because it's not being poured in, it's literally being shot into some of the corals. This might be considered a bad thing to do if you think about it from a copper band eating coral point of view. But one of my copper bands, so that it gets the food, I shoot the food into the Passillopora, because obviously there's lots of holes in the Passillopora. So the copper band can get the food inside it, but the other fish can't get to it.
That's quite cool.
And the Passillopora actually holds on to the food. Now, at some point in time, that copper band's going to eat that Passillopora. I've been doing it for months, and it doesn't seem that interested. However, having spoken to a really, really interesting person yesterday who was breeding Moorish idols, or is attempting to breed Moorish idols, apparently Passillopora are one of the top corals the fish eat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
I
interesting.
think we were talking about angelfish, so it might it might be angelfish specific, but he said Pasillipora is one of the ones. They're also one of the fastest growing corals as well. So it wouldn't surprise me.
They drop little pocky babies as well. I don't like pockies.
Everyone hates that. For me, I've never.
It's cool.
I've never had it happen ever.
Oh right, okay.
So mine just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But sometimes people get it where they float around the tank and all of a sudden they start to appear somewhere else. They don't seem to do that for me.
I didn't have that. I had it drop a baby by itself, and maybe I didn't have enough flow. But that was in a tank a couple of years ago, and I just don't like pocket. I don't like the look of it though. I much prefer stylo, which is a similar looking coral and a similar level of hardiness coral. You don't agree?
The growth pattern is so much more interesting from a Pasillipora, but the only problem with them is that the base of them dies because obviously they grow quite clumped together.
Yeah, like Hystrix.
And as they grow, it gets dead underneath. So when they get really big, it looks less attractive. But as I said, I think I said in the last stream that I actually moved them to an area of lower flow, and they grow completely differently. They grow like fingers rather than a clump, so they're easier to frag.
Okay, that's quite cool.
So, anyway,
do you know what? So the white thing this is a question I see often asked about Hystrix more than anything. Like if Hystrix has bleached at the base and is pure white, is my coral dying? No, it's not. It's just shading itself out. That's what it does. It's the same with pocket.
Yeah. They were saying with lots and lots of SBS corals do that, where it's where they shade themselves out.
Most that will retain a base, and in fact, I've got one I bought. I don't know what it is. I think it might be a rainbow loom or a paletta pink tip or something like that. But it's on a frag plug, and it's based out on the frag plug, on the side of the frag plug, on the underneath of the frag plug, and on the stem, even though it's shaded. And I find that most acros do that. And they will, like the base and the fleshy base just looks a bit boring, a bit drab, but it doesn't bleach. Whereas with Hystrix, Caliendrum is what I've got, Seriatopora Caliendrum, a really nice bright green one. That after when it gets big enough, the base starts to strip.
I find it usually seems to be in the middle. So when they're big enough, it's for whatever reason the very center is the bit that goes first. But it usually keeps growing, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. But then it starts to look a bit crap.
The only reason I know this is because whenever you break down a big tank, that's well grown in, that's been obviously around for a long time. It's really interesting because it looks amazing from the front where the corals grow, and then when you take them out, there's some like dead skeleton, and it's about like this much off the rock from where it's grown. But again, as you said, it depends on what corals it is. And there are definitely some corals which will literally grow in the dark. Sophastria is one of those ones which always surprises me because if you have a cave, it grows upside down in the cave. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing?
I've got a 24K Sophastria that I bought ages ago that I actually don't like. Yeah. And it's got completely shaded by an LA Lakers Monty to the point that you have to look closely because it's so dark, and it grows. It spreads still.
So all I just learned from that message is that soon there'll be a 24K Sophastria on my website, because whenever you don't want a coral, it usually comes to me.
Well, do you know, it's on the rock that I'm going to be getting rid of at some point.
Which also is probably coming to me.
Indeed. Well, if you like Tropic Thunder Monty, then you'll love this.
Alex plagued me with his Tropic Thunder Monty. His Tropic Thunder Monty.
It's a nice coral.
It is nice, but it just grows like crazy, and it grows on everything else.
There's a couple of questions I wanted to post up.
Yeah.
Firstly, Michael Cass Hansen says, "Are you okay?" Which I think is reference to I probably sound a little bit under the weather. I'm fine, by the way. I was off last week, didn't feel very well, and when I did the Abyss video of the purple yellow tang, I felt really unwell, and it was a struggle to get that video out. I didn't feel good at all, and I was off work one day. But now I'm absolutely fine. I just sound a little bit. I've got some symptoms. I've tested negative twice for COVID, but I think it probably is COVID because I've got ongoing symptoms. But I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I'm not like low energy or whatever. I just sound like I've got a cold. It's man flu, really, which is nasty, as we know. So
you're a trooper, aren't you? You're here for your fans.
That's how dedicated I am. Despite having man flu, the worst disease known to man, I'm still here, even though I didn't come last week. there was another one that I wanted to pull up. Joe Everton, controversial opinion. I don't need to dose if I do big weekly water changes. He saves it with on a nano.
That probably really is a controversial one. And how big are those water changes?
So yeah,
mathematically that doesn't work if you see, unless they're big enough.
Yeah. So the problem with that is there are two problems. One, and this is the same problem for people who don't dose because they're using Red Sea Coral Pro, the high alkalinity one. People will use that to top up their alkalinity or whatever. Problem with that is you get big swings when you do your water changes, especially if you do 25, 30+% water changes, which is not ideal. But also you can't control it. When I dose my tank throughout the day, I can check and see what the alkalinity is and how much it's bumping up, and it's pretty level. Whereas if you're doing water changes, you can't control that. I can't control that hour by hour. So you'd be able to get away with it. And I reckon actually he's probably right. On a soft coral tank, maybe even an LPS coral, they'd be a lot more forgiving and they'd be okay. What do you reckon?
They have to be big enough water changes. It's
50%?
Well, let's put it this way. If you're doing a 20% water change, which obviously is not big, even a 30% water change, you can only increase your alkalinity by 30%, if you see what I mean. So if it's like really low or much lower than it needs to be, then that's not going to cut it. And it might, look, there are lots of people that don't do any dosing at first for a period of time. I didn't do any dosing at first when I first had a reef tank. But eventually it does catch up with you if you have enough coral.
So that's the thing, that this is the sort of thing that people, and I'm not saying, Joe, that this is what you're doing, but a lot of people will say this because they'll have had success for 6 months. They'll stop doing water changes and they'll have success for 6 months, and they're like, told you, mate. And it's like, all right, come back to me in another 6 months when it's crashed and everything's a nightmare. And also, and the other thing is, there's
it's so mean. Joe just
I'm not being. I'm not.
A comment. Come back to me in 6 months.
I'm not saying this is Joe. I'm not saying that of you, of course. But this is the thing. And the other thing is, when people say these sorts of things, if you haven't seen their tank, it's like, because what someone might be saying, hey, do you know what? I haven't done water changes for 6 months, and my tank looks amazing. And I go, show me a photo, and I think it looks awful.
You would tell them as well.
I wouldn't. I'm a nice person, Ryan. I'm offended by this. But those are really my controversial opinions done.
Oh,
so
good.
Mine are nice and simple and relatively uncontroversial.
We're going to take a big sip of water.
I know yours is an absolute stinker. And whilst I'm probably a little bit behind with the chat already.
Okay.
So actually, let's do that let's move that out of the way. So because that's in the way of my comments. But we'll have a look at the chat whilst you steel yourself and
prepare myself. Think about what I'm going to say, because while Alex is looking at the comments, I will tell you what he said when I first told him this. He said to me, "You can't say that." Is what he said. Do you remember that conversation?
I don't actually.
You don't. It was when we, at the very, very beginning, I told you when you had this idea, and you went, "You can't say that." You actually said to me, "You'll lose all your viewers."
Yeah. Okay. Oh God, you're making it sound worse than it is.
It depends. It's only worse than it is, depending on how it comes, how it's portrayed. Because you can say it one way and people will be really offended, and you can say it a different way, and people would not be offended if you explain it.
Yeah, so it's the same as mine. The headline sounds bad, but
I'm not going to give you a headline. I'm just going to say
the headline. I want the headline. Oh, yeah, tell me the headline that sounds bad, and then we'll get stuck into more.
Okay.
So
what the headline probably is what we do is questionably ethical, and
that's a sucky headline.
Oh, what would you like to say then?
I want clickbait here, Ryan.
Okay, look, what we do does not do the fish any favors. So, and the reason I wanted to say this is because I hear all the time people say things, and there will be context to this, and it might make you feel bad listening to this, but if you listen, and hopefully it will actually improve you as a fish keeper. So this view came to me actually from this book. So this is a book written by Bob Fenner, who's actually a really, really, he was a very well-respected, and still is a well-respected actualist, but he obviously is no longer around. But basically, I hear people all the time say things like, oh, the fish are in my tank, so they don't have to worry about predators, they don't have to worry about food, and it's just wrong, basically. The fish don't have better lives being in our tanks. They just don't. And you're smiling because I've just let it all come out now.
So the headline I would have gone for is that what we do is unethical, or something along those lines.
Yes, but as I said, bear with me.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to say this is because I want you to think about what we do. And the other thing I wanted to say is about, a lot of people think that the fish that are in our hobby aren't hardy fish. Well, I have seen what they go through. I've seen a lot of the supply chain. From being collected and being held in tanks, and the tanks have lots of other fish in which have disease in them. There is a reasonably high mortality rate. And then they go into box. They don't get fed for a period of time before they're shipped, so that you don't pollute the water in the shipping boxes. And then they come over to another holding facility with lots of other fish, again, lots of disease. And throughout each step of the process, some of these fish do die. It is just it's part of what we do. And although this might make you feel not very good when you look at your tank thinking, I'm keeping these fish, which probably should be in the ocean, what it should actually make you think is, I better look after these fish, because these fish are incredibly valuable. They have been through a tremendous amount for what is essentially our own entertainment. And so I gave an example to Alex earlier, and this might bring it home to you. Most people will get a copper band and they'll put it in their tank, and they'll put food in, and they'll go, oh, it didn't eat, I'll try again tomorrow. Is that good enough? Because that is what most people would do. And what actually needs to happen, if you have a copper band that's not eating, feed it. And if it doesn't eat, feed it again in an hour. And then set your phone to go off every hour until you can get it to eat. And yes, people will say all of a sudden your nutrients will go up. Deal with those as well. It might take more work, but if it's gonna, you can see how pent up. If you don't want to put the hard work in with these fish, don't get them, because they should be treasured, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Because the mentality is, oh, oops, it died, I'll go get another one. And it's not acceptable. It just isn't. So, is that what you wanted?
Getting hot in here.
Is that what you wanted me to say, Alex? Because, as I said, it sort of just came out then. And I don't know if I portrayed it as well as I would like to portray it. And I did actually test this with some of the people I had consultations with. I told them what I was going to say to see what their reaction was. And when you explain it to people, they go, actually, you know what? That's right. And the reason I tell it when I do the consultations is because a lot of these people are at the very beginning of their journey. These are the people that need to know this. They're the people that need to go, I'm going to look after this. And if it's going to take that little bit extra effort, I'm going to do it. You're going to change the title of this stream to Prestige Reaper Loses It.
I'm just going to delete the first 45 minutes and be like, yeah, this is how Ryan really feels.
Yeah, and do you know what? As I said, I learned this from that book. This was probably, I don't know, 5 years into the hobby and I wasn't like, killing things and replacing them, but it gave me a different perspective, and I learned a lot more about the process. And as I said, I've been at the fish shops when they open the boxes, and sometimes the boxes, some of the fish in the box are dead. So most people don't see that. And although, look, I just seen a comment saying Bubbly Reefer, he says he or she says that they feel guilty, but it's if you feel guilty, it should change how you feel towards your tank. You might be already doing the best possible thing you can. But what most people do, if they go, I don't really feel like doing a water change today, so I think I'll just leave it. And then a week goes by, and then they eventually do it. So I'm not saying most people are generalizing, if you see what I mean, but I care a tremendous amount about what I do. And it is very different. Corals and fish are very different. So don't get me wrong. Look, I'll hold my hands up. I have thrown Hystrix in the bin. Hystrix is not the same as a fish. There are one is a sentient being and one is not a sentient being, and they feel they have characters, and you see the differences in them. You like copperbands again are the perfect example. Some of them are shy, some of them are aggressive, some of them are literally aggressive. I sent you a video, didn't I, showing you my copperband aggressive towards my tank.
Yeah.
And so each one of them is doing each one of them has different personality. Now I know I've done a lot of talking, but let me say one more thing before our hobby is tiny in comparison to the other stuff that happens in the ocean. It is insignificant. It's like 0.0000001% compared to the bycatch. So just the rubbish that gets caught, not rubbish, the fish that get caught that die and are thrown back in the sea for no purpose at all. So we are insignificantly small in comparison to the other damage. But people should still think. They should treat their fish like they're their dog or cat, not like they're something that they can just replace. So I'm done now. See you later. My channel will be closed tomorrow from all the harassment.
But that's a really good and actually the part of the reason I wanted to do this video with just that was because it's a worthwhile topic to discuss.
Yeah.
So so there's a couple of things to unpack there. First off, you said that we're not doing fish a favor. And because people will often say, do you know what? I'm a conservationist because I'm keeping fish that would otherwise die in the wild. It would otherwise be eaten by something else, or it would have a shorter lifestyle and lifespan. And actually, there is some merit.
Yeah, I understand.
In maybe 5% of the cases, because there are some people who will have a clownfish for 30 years, and a clownfish probably won't live to 30 in the wild. They can do, but there are people who will look after them, and they will live for years. And if they were in the ocean, they would be more likely to have a worse lifestyle, struggle for food at times, all these sorts of things. But that's a very, very small proportion, and I don't include myself in that at all. Okay,
what proportion of those fish which survived that would have survived in, what I'm trying to say? How many fish in the ocean have died because they landed on a carpet and then a reef keeper came home from... and that's the thing. So that's what it, so it's massively outweighed by the reality of the situation. People who say that are usually the people who are trying to defend themselves. Yes.
And actually there are some people who have been in the hobby 30 years, who are vastly experienced, have massive tanks often, and would have had fish for years and years and years. But even I'm a semi-experienced, not an experienced, but a semi-experienced hobbyist. And I had my, I told you earlier, I had my rabbit fish died, my foxface died today.
Yeah.
And it hadn't been eating properly for 6 months. I've been trying to get it to eat, but it hadn't been eating.
Is this your yellow one?
Yeah, the big one.
Oh, when you said rabbit fish, I wasn't thinking of a foxface. I was thinking of a different type, but I know which one it is now.
Yeah. But so he died today, and that was my fault. So I'm not going to start saying, oh God, I feel so guilty or whatever, because to be completely honest, I don't. But that was my fault because I tried, but I hadn't tried hard enough to feed him properly. Because there was obviously either that or he had worms, and I didn't do enough to fish him out and treat him. So and that fish is much more likely to have lived a longer life in the wild, and more often than not. So I've got some fish that I've had for 5 years easily. But more often than not, the fish that we keep don't live full and lengthy lives. They'll like you say, they'll jump out, or you'll have an ammonia spike, or you'll do like I bought a harlequin tuskfish and then bought a jawfish, and the jawfish got eaten within 4 seconds of going in the tank. So those are the sorts of things that happen. But so there is. Go on.
Oh no! So already. I think my oldest fish is my purple tang, which I've had for 15 years.
Yeah.
Which is like. How she's been through thick and thin, that tang. She's been through tank crashes. I remember once she was so completely covered in white spot. This was in the early days. And I was treating her in a tank with copper. And it was like, I'd never seen a fish so covered in white spot. And for whatever reason, the copper treatment wasn't working. And this is the wrong thing to do. So definitely don't do this. But for whatever reason, 14 years later, she's still around. she was actually, you know, when they're at the stage where they're like lying on their side, and you go, look, this is it. I remember it being in the evening. I put the medication in, and I overdosed the medication on purpose. And I thought to myself, either I'm going to kill this fish, or I'm going to cure this fish. And I kid you not, I woke up in the morning, it was swimming around. I swear on my life. Even to this day, I look back and I don't believe myself when I tell this story. And I'd love to know what it had or what like fixed it. But something that night, because I know that isn't how copper works. So I don't know how it fixed it so quickly.
That's funny, actually, yeah.
But it really did. It was literally, it was like on death's door. And that was something that was stupid that I did when I was younger and I was inexperienced. And you should definitely not overdose your medication. That isn't what you should do. But I kind of felt sorry for it. And I know there are much nicer ways to put a fish out of his misery, and I have done it.
Yeah.
But because one of my fish went blind. It was like properly blind, and it was a scooter blenny. So it's not like some fish can survive being blind, but you can't. As a scooter blenny, can't survive being blind. And it had his eyes. It just couldn't see anything. And I could literally put my hand in the tank and get it out with my hand. And you know, if you can do that, something's wrong.
Yeah. So in terms of euthanizing, so the fox face that died today, when I woke up in the morning, so yesterday it was hiding in a cave when I put food in, and my missus was like, "Why is he hiding?" And fish are creatures of habit. That if they're doing something odd, there's usually a problem. And I was like, okay, well, I came down in the morning. It was stuck to a power head.
Yeah.
And I actually went out first thing in the morning. I had to wait for half an hour for the shop to open to get clove oil to put it out of its misery. Unfortunately, they didn't have clove oil. They'd run out. And by the time I got home, it had died. But I've decided that I'm going to have, at some point, I'm going to get some clove oil. So I always have it on hand. Because that, if you read up on how to euthanize a fish and how clove oil works, it's like it gives it it's like an anesthetic effectively. So it just like zones out, and it feels, because not when a fish is, because I thought it was dead. I turned the power head off, and it started like one of its fins moved a little bit, and it was like,
but when that's even worse.
That's the thing. When it's really struggling, it's like, oh man, that's not nice. But so back onto the point of the hobby being selfish and that sort of stuff and unethical. No. And that's the headline, but that's a really healthy conversation to have.
Yeah.
Because to an extent, it is. And there, if it was black and white, someone could argue, do you know what? It's just full stop. It's bad. You shouldn't be doing it. And there are certain points that you could rely on to say, no, you just shouldn't be doing it. Fish don't want to be in a box, unnatural environment, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. But actually, the point that you're making is that it shows that you should care for it. And if people, so Bubbly Reef earlier was talking about how upset that was making her, thinking about these fish dying. But that is the sign of a good person, and that's the kind of person you need to be in this hobby. And actually, I think that's what most of us are like in the hobby. Is most people aren't just, oh, you know what, my fish died, so what, I'll throw it away, I don't care. Most people care about it. And if you care about fish, and it's easy to be a little bit complacent at first, and just go like, you know what, I bought a couple of and it didn't eat. Oh, bollocks, I'll go and buy another one. Oh, that one didn't eat. Oh, I'll try another one. But if you care about it, I'm not saying it's like if your dog or a cat dies, but if a fish dies, there is a bit of you that's like, oh God. So it's not just like a disposable item, like a Hystrix.
Have you still got your first fish out of interest?
No. Long gone. I've sold it years ago.
Oh, did you? Oh, it's that was the one that hit me the most, because I had a tank crash. As you know, it's well documented. And I'd had, I think it was 7 years at the time, I'd had a fox face, and it was called Dave. It was the first fish I ever had. Dave. Yeah, it was called Dave. And I actually went to the fish shop to go get a lionfish, and they went, I'm sorry, but the lionfish there is reserved. It's just sold. And I went, well, have you got any other poisonous fish? Because I was an idiot. I just wanted a poisonous fish. And they went, well, we've got this fox face. I was like, oh, that'll do. And I put it in the tank. And a lot of people still don't know this. And then I called the fish and I said, there's something wrong with this fish because it's not yellow anymore. Because, they change colour.
Yeah. But everybody says that.
Yeah, people don't know that.
people like I'm on a couple of Facebook groups and that are mostly beginner people asking questions, and it's always, I've bought a Midas blenny and it's looking really funny. Is it okay? Or I bought a rabbit fish and it's mottled. It looks awful. Is that okay? And it's like, even when it's 6 months in and it's settled, go and have a look where it is at night when it's sleeping. That's its camouflage colours. It's not stress. That's natural.
A lot of the fish do that. Even the tangs, everything, they all change colour at night. If you look at them at night, they're not the same vibrance as they are during the day. They're more like they're like a whitey coloured. I'm actually going to do a video on the coral farm at night. That was the video I was going to do. That will be the next video I do. But the problem is, if you have to be in the mood to make a video, when are you ever in the mood to make a video at 1 a.m? You see what I mean? You have to, because it has to be that late for it to go in there and for all the starfish to be out and all the the regal tank. I got a picture of it. It sleeps in the digitata upside down, like face up. So its head's here, and it's just like wedged in there. I'll send you a picture of it later. And it's and I just thought, I've never seen this, and people would be interested in seeing this. And the fox face that's in there is all different coloured, and all the snails are out, and the shrimps are roaming around.
Yeah.
So,
you catch up with comments.
Oh no, I haven't read any comments.
There was one that was Ian Stafford.
Oh, you're laughing at?
No, not at all. He says, as a vet, I'd recommend clove oil as the most humane way. So I looked this up years ago. It was when I had freshwater. I was looking up how to euthanize a fish, and there are some people who will get a brick and literally slam it, and that might be an instant end, but that if you get it wrong, that's not a pleasant way to go. And
it's not even that. I'm not sure I could do that. No,
completely. I wouldn't be able to do it either. Other people talk about icing, so you put fish in a cup of ice. Yeah. But it's not like. But if you look, and so this guy's a vet. But if you look up, there was a humble fish guide that I was looking at today whilst I was waiting in the pharmacist, and it describes the process that a fish goes through when it's being euthanized by clove oil, and you've got to do it gently. You can't just chuck in an absolute ton. You've got to put in a few drops in 3 or 4 liters of water, and then it just goes through and it just kind of zones out, and then it's completely at peace. And then you put in a little bit more, and it passes away. If you put in a ton immediately, which is what you would think, the more the better, right? With this, it will shock it.
Yeah.
But if you do it properly and slowly, it's natural. And I was thinking, should I video this? Because that's the sort of thing that I think is worth sharing.
That's the problem. When you're a YouTuber, you go. Sometimes you have these moments where it's like this, and they're kind of like they're quite personal moments, aren't they? And then you go, "Should I put this on YouTube for people to watch?"
And the other thing is, so my tone is normally quite upbeat, and if I'm going, "Hey guys, I'm going to kill a fish today. I'm going to do it really humanely," it would sound really weird. But I didn't. When I got back, it was dead anyway. But I thought it would be I thought it would have been useful to share, actually, to show it, because it must. Everybody's done it, had it before, where there's a fish dying in your tank. You know it's dying, but you hope it's going to recover. You try to feed it. You might put it in your sump or whatever, but you know it's going to die, and you're too scared as much as anything to pull out and do it. Whereas what you should be doing, really, if it's not just something that it'll pass, you should be doing.
It's easier for us to just not take responsibility.
Easier for us, yeah.
Yes, it's. Responsibility, accepting responsibility is so important, not just in all aspects of your life is important, but especially with our tanks. If something goes wrong with our tank, it's our fault. There's no one else doing this. If your corals die, they don't die for a random reason usually, especially if they've been growing in someone else's tank or something. It's usually something that you're doing, or something you're not doing usually. For example, like you're obviously, look, I would say you say that you're an average reel. I can't remember what you said. You're not the most experienced.
Not mega experienced though.
I actually think you're more experienced than most people that I meet. And even the other day, you had a colony that died, and do you remember? And it was your salinity, wasn't it? And
yeah.
And the reason it was so that was, without being disrespectful, that was your fault. Because
100% it was my fault.
You put too much into your faith in testing of automation, and you weren't like actively checking that the salinity was correct.
And this is the stupid thing. So salinity is what if you're watching this and you're a new reefer and your tank's looking a bit crap, check your salinity. 9 times out of 10, it's salinity. That should not happen with an experienced enough reefer and a mature tank. But the problem that I had, so I never had a problem with my salinity ever before. But I was given a salinity probe, a salinity monitor by Refactory, and they drift. Okay. All salinity probes are notorious for it.
Yeah. All salinity, not the refractometers. People need to know this. You know your refractometer that you calibrated 6 months ago? I promise you, it's not calibrated anymore.
I'm just trying to pull out. I haven't got it. But yeah, so they drift, and this and I hadn't calibrated it, which is stupid because I hadn't calibrated it for 3 months. If I'd have calibrated it every month, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But my salinity was a little bit low, or it was reading as low. So I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to keep pouring in a bit of salt water every now and then the fresh water will evaporate and it'll fix it over time. And it got to the point where I had a couple of corals. I had an Acropora valida that I'd had for years that stripped, and it was always in a low flow spot, and I'd always wondered about it. But it had been fine for a long time. But I had another colony that stripped before that again I'd bought from a frag from a hobbyist, had it for at least 2 years. It was fine, and it started stripping, and I was like, that's weird. So I tested the salinity, and at that point I was like, it was like 38 parts per thousand. I was like, oops.
There wasn't any experienced reefer that you knew just that happened to mention about testing salinity like a week earlier or anything, was there?
Some smart ass maybe.
Because I said to you, test your salinity, you went, nah, it's my salinity never changes.
So I thought I think I just tested this generally. I don't think anything triggered me to test it. Did you tell me to test it?
About a week earlier, we had the conversation because when I first set up the coral farm, I lost some grafted Montipora and I couldn't work out what it was. And I just, when you get a new system, you go, oh, it's probably that it's a new system, like that's what it is. And I was trusting the probes on the GHL. And it was a few months in, I reckon. And I lost a colony which was like this huge. Yes, for a grafted Montipora, your camera's just gone. Oh, you said it might go. Just to let you know. You still there? Nope. It sounds like maybe his microphone's gone as well. Am I even still here? Right. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me, because Alex did say that he might.
Everybody is still here. So my microphone is plugged into my camera.
Oh, could you hear me a minute ago?
I could hear you. You were still here. Everything was still
like,
fine.
am I by myself?
This is. I bought a new camera this week, and I underestimated. Never mind. Carry on. We'll go back.
I can't remember. Well, so I remember saying to you something. I can't remember what it was. But it was something about salinity and how I had the issue with the Montipora. And I remember you saying to me, my salinity never changes. And then a week later, you checked your salinity, and I think I sent you a message going,
gotcha.
"Oh, you checked your salinity, eh?"
I don't remember that. But okay, fair enough. Well, there you go. And to be fair, I'm right. My salinity does never change. It was only because I had, over the course of a few months, been trying to change it and not testing it. And then as soon as I tested, so I used my Hannah checker, and I calibrated this first because this loses calibration very quickly. But I calibrated it, and I was like, "Oh God, it was really high." So then I calibrated the probe, and it was like, "Oh Christ!" It thought it was 31.5, so it was way off. And but salinity is it's a big one.
That seems to be the most wild test with all the methods we test, whether it's a refractometer, hydrometer. They're like the really old school ones here. The probes or the pens, they all lose calibration, all of them. So it's the most inconsistent reading I find of everything, as far as because you get a Salifert test kit for something, or the Hannah checker, they're usually pretty all right. But for salinity, it's like the Wild West.
And the trouble is, you can get with salinity. Within the past, I've tried to work out my salinity because I've been paranoid because my skimmer skims wet and that's salt water losing. So I've thought in the past,
do you know what? I'm taking all this salt water out. I need to replace it, don't I? And I've gone through the process thinking, right, let's nail it down and just get it exact. And so I've gone, okay, Hannah checker, what does that say? Refractometer, hydrometer, all this stuff. And it's like, everything is different.
Yes.
So which you trust. Right. But you don't, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. It doesn't need to be 100% 1.025 or 1.026 exactly.
Yeah.
If it's a little bit up or down, it doesn't matter, it's fine. But mine got to 1.028 and that was too much. And that was there. And since I've got back down, there was another coral that was really struggling. That's now it's healed, it's back, and it's like everything is fine. So it was that. I also added more flow as well because who doesn't like more flow? But it was the salinity for sure.
Everyone with one of those fluval tanks apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't need it.
Someone says, right, if we had a fight, who would win? Definitely Reef Dog.
If we had a fight, who would win? Have you seen my pipe cleaner arms though? Look at that. Right.
Actually, mate, well, I don't know. Actually, maybe. No, but you're taller than me, I think. So
I watch a lot of mixed martial arts. So I reckon I must have picked up some jiu-jitsu.
Probably. See, I watch a lot of fish YouTube channels recently, as you know.
Yeah, I do, which we won't go into. But these are, do you know what? These are the kind of questions when I started asking for member questions.
Yeah.
These are the kind of questions I was hoping for.
What? Who would win in a fight?
Yeah, 100%. Because like the questions that we get are the most sensible questions that you would ask. Hey, how do you deal with algae or whatever?
Yeah.
But the questions I would like more of is random questions like that.
Oh God, look what is about to come in.
Tell you what, can you do? I think you can do a poll on this. Can you do a poll? If you can, I'm not sure I know how to do it. No, I don't know how to create it. But let's
comment. Can I? I wanted to comment. I was going to put what shampoo do you use? I can't comment.
Well, I tell you what. First off, who would win in a fight between me and Ryan? Comment below who you would think, Ryan or Alex. Who would win?
Well, I personally think it would be you, but
I think it would be the most pathetic fight you've ever seen in your life.
I've never been in a fight in my entire life, so probably you, I'm afraid.
Me neither. I think there would be no winners. Is my
no winners, but it would be embarrassing for both of us.
It would. But,
we got one person saying me. Yes,
you've got to vote.
Yeah, that's just me on a different account.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like a secret account. I just said Ryan.
That's your mum tuning in. And Bubbly Reef says, in all fairness, we had a question about naked ladies or horrid wallpaper.
Firstly, whoa. Could we take the horrid out of that comment? It's a personal choice, Ryan, because he's younger.
After I've seen Alex's puny arms. Well, I can say that. You can't. God, come on, guys.
And I'm not going to show you my arms, so you'll never know.
Alex in 10 rounds. God, if this goes 10 rounds, that's not going to be fun, is
You know what everyone always says to me? And I find this really offensive. Everyone says to me, you're so much thinner in person. I'm like, do I look really fat in the videos?
Camera adds 10 pounds, doesn't it?
Ryan's purple tang, probably. She can survive anything.
Apparently, I look like Tyson Fury.
Alex must secretly root for Ryan. A lot of people are saying Ryan. I don't know who Jake Paul is. Who's Jake Paul?
Alex, if he's allowed palitoxin.
Yeah, true. Who's
Jake Paul is he's a YouTuber who's been doing boxing people who don't box properly.
I look nothing like Jake Paul. Do you know a lot of people say I look like Remy Malik?
Remy Malik.
Yeah, the guy.
Oh yeah, the guy from Queen.
Yeah. That's probably not the best show.
Show us your biceps, right?
No.
Come on, mate. This is what the people want to see.
No, I haven't been to the gym for a long time. Since I've been running, I've lost any sort of definition. I'm now just. I used to go to the gym all the time, but not anymore.
All right, sounds like you're posturing.
I gave up after COVID, basically. Do you shine your head? Yes, I do. I do.
Wonder who he's talking to.
I'm like. I like how this is like vastly diverted from where no.
Biceps.
Why can't we get back onto the stuff we want to talk about? I'm going by hairstyles.
There are so many things that I wanted to talk about with your problem that with your suggestion, and I can't really remember most of it, to be honest. But I think that the overriding point I wanted to make in response to your "this is a selfish hobby," blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff,
yeah,
is that it is, but
all that means is you need to care about and put effort into it. And the copper band is a prime example. So when I got my copper band, the first couple, I can't remember what I did with them, but I don't think I did enough. The last one that I got, I was talking to you beforehand before the stream. I was putting in all sorts of about 15 different foods, 12 cubes of frozen a day.
Yeah.
God knows what my nutrients were doing, but chucking in an absolute ton every day until it got in feeding, and it did work. It got in feeding. You're laughing at something. Someone else?
Who, me? No.
You're just your resting sniggering face.
No, actually, I remember someone messaged earlier. You passed over it. I don't actually read a lot of the comments, but one of them says, "Is this turning into the Prestige Reef and Reef Dog show?"
I saw that. Yeah.
But look, what I said to Alex was, if he's not got anyone else on, I don't mind coming on. And I think, and obviously, I did a live show last week, and I now appreciate how hard it is to do it by yourself. And I quite enjoy these, and Alex quite enjoys them. And so, and as long as you don't mind that I keep showing up, because obviously this is technically his channel, I don't mind being here.
Fine. I don't enjoy them so much when I'm on my own. It's hard.
Yeah.
Well, weirdly, I keep up with the comments better, but I find I watch it back, and I'm like, that's a bit boring, because it's just me just going, I don't know. I'm not that keen. Whereas when there's someone you can interact with, it's just a bit more.
That's two insights that people, well, not two insights, but there actually is two insights that people don't know about these live streams. The first thing is, for whatever reason, we watch them back afterwards, don't we?
Every time, yeah.
And usually, for me, it's usually straight afterwards, because when you're in the moment, it doesn't feel like you're doing it. You're just talking. It's like just talking to a friend. But when you watch
why do you watch? There are a couple of reasons I watch them back. Why do you watch them back?
Don't know.
Because you've got an ego problem.
No, I don't know. Just it's interesting to see how you come across sometimes, because when I watch them back, sometimes you miss things that either you said or I've said something that did I say that in the right way? Was that so? I 100%. Might not watch this whole one, but I will definitely watch the bit where I go off on a rant, because I want to see. And I saw a lot of comments basically which were positive, going, "Yeah, look, I agree with what you're saying. It's good that people should feel like this." But I don't know how I come across, because it's very difficult to judge yourself in the moment. So that's one reason. When I spoke to Sean yesterday at the Ocean Project, he said to me, "Bloody hell, it's knackering doing those live streams, and people don't realize that, do they? After these shows, we are exhausted."
Yeah, it's funny that. And so this was my problem with this is, so I started doing these at when I first started doing it, it was Sunday 8:00 because I thought that was the best time. But actually, as it turns out, I'm then knackered by the time it's finished. But so I watch it back for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the same as you, I want to know how I come across. And there are so many times I'll watch this back tomorrow, and I'll be like, why didn't I say that? Ryan said this. Why didn't I say this, this, and this? It's just, or there are things I say that's like, no, that's not right. That's not what I meant to say.
Yeah.
So I sometimes do that, but also I miss so many comments. So I tend to watch it back the next morning, because if I watch it back in the evening, the comments, the live stream chat isn't there yet. For some, I think it's YouTube processes it overnight or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I'll watch it back the next day to see what people are saying. And there are some times, because I've probably missed 90% of the comments, there are some times I'm like, I wish I'd posted that up or whatever.
Yeah, I find it easier because you are the one reading the comments to me, so I don't have to worry.
That's another thing that's good about doing the live stream with someone else, is that it means I can pull up comments like this.
Yeah, no, but can you
whilst you're talking?
Can you pull up this one where it says, "How many 6-year-olds do you think you could take in a fight at once?" Probably half. Make it a 3-year-old, and I might be able to win.
Shell Smuck 2, you need to come back to every live stream and ask these questions.
Yeah,
how many 6-year-olds could you take?
You're quite entertaining.
I reckon I could take 10 easy.
You can take 10
because you give one a proper belt.
God, what is this? Oh my God. So were you worried about my channel, about me saying these things? You went, yeah, just really.
This is a hypothetical situation.
People don't know this, but Alex and I are actually really, really good friends. Well, from my perspective, we're really good friends. and we talk to each other basically every day, and he makes me laugh sometimes so much, even when it's just text by text message. I'm literally laughing like this, which is so rare for a text message conversation where you're actually laughing out loud.
That's another thing I love about these live streams, because my personality doesn't come across as much in my normal videos as it does in these, and I think you get a little bit more of a sneak peek into that sort of thing.
It said Reef Talk is now cancelled.
Reef Talk is now cancelled just because I said I wanted to punch a 6-year-old. I mean, you can't say anything these days.
I'm going to take that bit of the live stream and put it on my Instagram and YouTube channel of you saying I want to punch a 6-year-old.
Ryan, get your biceps out, mate. This is like the 5th time.
It doesn't matter. I'm not a piece of meat, you know. I'm feeling objectified, so it's in the old days, I might have done it, but I'm a bit more self-conscious these days.
Yeah, I've said it a few times now, haven't I? Let's stop that.
Saying it over and over. Oh, what, the 106-year-old?
No, don't say it. God's sake.
You're gonna get this. I'm gonna flag this as an inappropriate video.
I know, yeah. I'm getting demonetized, aren't we? That's okay, though. That's fine.
I love how some people are still talking about Carl's. Get right on.
Yeah, so
I am drinking, but I just not enough. Right?
You've got a choice. You've got a choice now. Which do you want? We will accept either.
I have an incredibly hairy chest, so you would, and many of you will have seen that So Mindy got sent some advertising. She got sent one of those. What are they? Those white wife beater shirts.
Yeah.
And from Rod's Food in America, and I was there at the time, and I opened the box, and without her knowing, because obviously I knew it was for advertising, I took my shirt off and I put it on, and I walked into the room with her, and I go, look, this just turned up for you, and it's on my Instagram somewhere. But I think that was when people realized I'm like Wolverine with regards to how hairy my chest is.
I think I remember that. So for the benefit, I don't know. I assume.
If you're going to try and find that picture.
No. But I assume that wife beater is a British idiom, basically, and that it doesn't travel across the.
They're called singlets, I think.
So this is a wife beater. I don't know why it's called a wife beater. It's a weird phrase, to be honest, but that's what you mean by it. It's. And basically, actually, funnily enough, that's what I look like in a tank top. So.
Yeah.
I've got more veins than that, though. So yeah.
I'm going to see if I have a very. I'm going to look for about 10 seconds to see if I can find that picture, because that picture is.
I've got a comment for you.
What is the? Oh, I found it.
Oh no! I misread it. I thought it said we're watching with 6-year-olds.
Oh yes.
Oh my God!
There you go. Look at that picture. Now. Mindy didn't. Now, firstly, Rod's Food did not know that was coming. So
that's quite something. That is.
I met Rod actually at a show afterwards, and I was like, he didn't seem impressed. Let's put it that way. But that picture got like thousands, I think, of views because obviously it's entertaining.
But that's the thing. There are some things that like, so I don't really know. I don't know how Instagram works, but there are some things on Instagram that work really well, and others that you think will do great and don't.
Yeah.
Same with YouTube, to be fair.
Was Ryan in that picture? Yes, just about.
There was a bit of bicep in that picture, Ryan. Alex would win the fight. We're still on that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Let's go back to some. This is a serious reefing channel, so let's go back to this. What's your favorite? This is a question that gets asked all the time.
Boxfish. Boom.
Boxfish straight in there. Look at that.
Yeah.
Because you had one of those for a while, didn't you?
I had one. It was called Pablo. I had one for years. Pablo. It was actually chosen by someone else, a lovely blonde lady. Reminds me of Will from The In-Betweeners. Nice. It was actually chosen by Lou. Oh, she hasn't had a mention in a long time. God, this is a controversial stream.
Let's talk about Miss Saltwater Tank, shall we?
Oh, just yeah. I maintain my. All of a sudden, the comments go, "Oh, I remember this." I'm not ashamed of my roots, but yeah, she picked it, and unfortunately, I had it for years, and I would still have it, I reckon. But there was an issue. I had a power head which was a prototype, which was given to me, which I was testing, and it was originally in a different tank, and then I moved it over to the 1,000-liter tank, and the next day I found Pablo on it, and I was like,
oh, no.
there's no doubt about it. This was a fish with it was
Healthy, strong.
It has to be. It can't be anything else. That actually what it was. Okay, no, I didn't find him on it. I actually found him below it. So the power head was like powerful. Where it was like shooting,
like stuck to it.
No, so this is what it was. So the power head was on and then off, and then on and then off. And when I found him, he was just below the power head, and he had all these stripes perfectly in line with the power head stripes. I'm not going to say what power it was because it was, as I said, it was a prototype at the time, so it's just it was never released. It was just one of those things that happened.
Yeah. Okay.
I've now realised don't put prototypes in your display tank with your most beloved fish. I can't believe people didn't know that Pablo died. Pablo's been on for a long time. He died probably 3 years ago, I reckon.
And the rabbit. So actually, Bubbly Reef. You said earlier that he was my favourite. So I might have said that on a video. I don't. I wouldn't say he's my favourite. He was a really cool fish, though, to be fair. But I wouldn't say he was my favourite. But the copper band is my favourite, which I shouldn't say because it will encourage people to go and get one.
Yeah,
and then they'll die because people won't feed them properly.
Yeah,
or you will feed it properly and it'll just die anyway because they're just weird.
Well, you if ever starts eating your car or anything, you've always got a home for it with me. So it's you're like that's the last fish that I'll be taking. It's but no, I actually the best way to get cod bands is to buy them off other people. That's the highest chance to get the good success rate.
Yeah, even then, they sometimes if they move tanks, they're just like no.
Oh no, absolutely. There is a tremendous amount of difference. You can have two cod bands, and if you introduce them in different ways, they will react completely differently, even though both of them were feeding exactly the same. If you put the best thing you can do, put them in an acclimation box for a week, and let the other fish get used to them, and then release it in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay. Fair enough. Other fish that aren't so fussy and likely to die. My hawkfish. I've got 3 hawkfish. I don't really like the falco. I think he's, I don't know, not that keen on him. But the long nose and the scarlet hawkfish are so cool. They're awesome. They're just great characters.
What's a falco hawkfish?
He's like a kind of white body with like brown checks on him.
Oh, I know which one it is. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I was trying to think of what the last one was, but yeah.
But so I've had the falco for about 2 years. I've had the long nose and the scarlet or the flame, whatever, for 4 years, a long time, and they've been good as gold. They've never eaten any of my my shrimp or anything. I had an anemone shrimp that I bought, and it died or it disappeared a couple of weeks later. That I suspect might have beaten them because they're quite small anemone shrimps. But I've got 3 clean shrimp. It's never touched them, and they're so cool.
You see how people don't when they see our channels, and whenever you see anyone's reef tank, and if there's been going long enough, going back to the original thing that I discussed earlier, our tanks are built on the bones of other things. If you think about it, you just mentioned that you put some anemone shrimp in there, and you probably didn't even think about those again until this moment. But they're not around anymore. It's just that's why going back to the original thing. Please look after your tanks. Treat them like they're royalty, because, as I said, it's you. If you do everything you can, then you have no reason to feel guilty. Is how I feel, because there's lots of hobbies which are questionable. In fact, almost everything to do with animals is questionable. If you look at dog breeding and how inbred a lot of dogs are, or horse racing or dog racing, there's always these questionable ethics around them. Even as I said, my sister's partner has 40 tortoises. Even that is a questionable thing to do. Apparently, I didn't go into it, but it's just as controversial as fish keeping. Apparently, there's just as many people arguing over tortoises as there are over fish.
But I don't ever see people arguing that side of the hobby because I don't talk to people outside of the hobby. Every now and then, I did a video about the Harlequin tuskfish. Yeah. And that was the only video I've ever done that's got quite a lot of views from people not in the hobby.
Yeah.
And that I got quite a few comments. Most of my videos just people, fish nerds like you and me. But fish widows. But that one video got loads of comments from people clearly not in the hobby and clearly not fish keepers.
Yeah.
And and there were a couple of people who were talking about like it's unethical and all this stuff. And it's like, if you know what we're doing, it's not that, okay, you know what? So you can't say that it's the same as a cat, because my cat has got acres of territory to go and roam. He brings in mice. He has the time of his life. He sleeps
Even
all day long.
owning a cat is ethically questionable because of all the things it kills.
Well, true, but that's animals do that. So I don't have a problem with that. But cats and dogs, they live. They would far rather be with us than anyone else. Our fish wouldn't.
Yes, true.
But all that tells you is that you need to look after them more carefully.
Yeah. I've just seen a really interesting comment, and it's different to what we're talking about, but I think it's something that we should probably discuss. So it's the last one that's come in. So from Born to Be
Shooter Josh.
That's probably not the best.
I can't believe no one's mentioned a clarion angel being their favourite fish. Or
First, I'd like to point out that Born to Be a Shooter is probably not the best name to have.
With a gun of some kind.
Yeah. I suppose guns are different. We feel differently in England, don't we? It's more of a culture in America. So, but that's more likely to get me hate than what I said earlier. Yes. So the reason I wanted to discuss this is because I'm interested, Josh. Why do you think that clarion angel should be our favorite fish? Because the only reason I can think of is because they cost a tremendous amount of money, and I will tell you, I have a gem tang, and after you have one of those fish, they just become the same as every other fish. They don't feel any more special. I don't look at it and go, don't get me wrong. At first, I was like, oh yeah, see, that's a nice picture of a clarion angel. Show an adult. I was
going to say, juvenile, they look awesome. Older, they look a bit boring.
They're just like, now show an annularis, because an annularis is actually the angelfish. Was one of the ones I liked the most.
Annularis is boring.
Oh, do you even know what one is?
Yeah, I looked up the other day after you sent me a picture.
I really like annularis.
That to me is boring, to be honest.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. But yeah, it's all right. Yeah, no, sorry, it's wicked. Yeah, I love it.
I like that we can see your targeted advertising. Imagine if it came up with something which was more inappropriate.
I don't know. I actually bought that jacket already, so I don't know what skip was. And that was weeks and weeks ago. Anyway.
That's obviously how adverts work. Now, imagine if it was something that was like more embarrassing than that.
I don't search for anything embarrassing, so it wouldn't.
Oh well, sure. Don't look at my computer then. My computer's it's got loads of pictures of screenshots of you.
That's like the Alan Partridge thing, I think.
Actually, what is weird for me, every time I come this, Alex goes, "Can I have a picture of you, please?" And I'm like, "Is this for your wall?"
It's not weird, just like photos of you. That's all.
Well, yes. The reason I wanted to discuss this is because too much emphasis is put on price of things. Someone at the very, very start of the stream said that tiger torches are ridiculous for how much they cost.
I saw that. Yeah.
It was one of the very first comments, and we obviously went over it. And I'm starting to realize that people are buying things. Remember, I get a wide range of people buying like all sorts of corals, but I can look at things objectively now because when you see so much of them, chalices, as I said, are the perfect example. There are so many nice chalices, but the named ones are the ones that get crazy prices. And the other ones can be like £15, but people don't buy them, but they look nicer. So are we buying them because we want to go, look, we've got this, or are we buying them based on how they look?
I like to think I'm mostly immune to that, but I almost, and I didn't in the end, but recently when I set up the Fluval Evo, I was going to buy a De Jonge Grammar.
Oh, yeah.
Which is basically a reversey Percy Royal Grammar. It's like yellow at the front, pink at the back, purple at the back, whatever. And they're about £1,000, maybe 1,500 quid. And I was like, but they're really cool. And but the more I thought about it, the more I thought, if it's the same bloody fish as a Royal Grammar, if that was the same price, would I be looking twice at it? And I decided in the end, if it was the same price, I think I would have bought it. But I decided that the main reason I wanted it was because it's this expensive rare fish.
Yes.
And the reality is, it's like, well, it's not actually any better. Tiger torches are a really good one because they're outrageously expensive, and they are nice, but they're like,
are they that nice compared to other even torches?
Standard torches.
This is what I like as a test. This is the best way to test people. If you show people like 5 different torches, someone who's never been in the hobby, are they going to pick the Tiger torch as the best one? Put it next to a gold torch, for example, which is cheaper than a Tiger torch, which is definitely nicer.
There are some torches that I think are really nice. There's, if you ever watch Muggsy's Aquarium?
I don't even watch you, if I'm honest.
No. So he's got a holy grail, and he's got a couple of torches. I don't know what they're called, to be fair, but they look. I mean, it might just be the camera, but they look really nice. And they're like these bright yellowy goldy type. And actually, Queen of Reef. Have you seen Queen of Reef?
Oh yeah, all the time. No, just joking. I spend all day working with coral. I spend all day talking to people about coral. I make videos on coral. I don't want to sit at home in the evening watching people with YouTube channels talking about coral.
So that's where we differ, because I can't get enough of it. But anyway, the point I'm making is that there are some torch corals are really nice, and I think they are worth more money than a standard green torch with pink tips, which is still a nice coral.
Yeah.
But is it worth £500 for a single polyp?
Exactly.
£1,000? No way. Absolutely no chance. And even the Australian gold torches, it's probably going to die. And they're 400 quid a head. It's just insane.
Yeah. It is one of those, it's really interesting for me just to see the mentality, because I get a whole range of different people. I get new people, really experienced people, and also people that come in that have no interest in the hobby, that their partners have bought them. And if you look at all the different things that each of the different people are interested in, because the beginners all want, no, not the beginners, the non-interesting people all want Xenia, which I know we've discussed before.
Yeah.
And then the mildly interested people, not like the beginners, usually they love the Zoas. I think a lot of people do this. They progress. You start with soft corals, then you get into LPS. And I was thinking this earlier, because I think a lot while I'm in the coral room. A lot of people think a tank like yours is the pinnacle of what we do. A tank that's all sort of a tank that is all acropora or mostly acropora. But what makes that the pinnacle? Who says that's the pinnacle?
The fact that so many people say it, though, it's not. This isn't just someone else said it, so I think it's true. There's something about it and it's because it's more challenging. So with any hobby, no matter what it is, or anything in life, if you were doing the same, if you had a job where you're doing the same thing day in, day out, and it's low level, and it's not taxing, you get bored of it.
Yes.
And with any hobby, the more intricate it is, the more detailed it is, the less likely you are to get bored of it, and the more it keeps you interested. So that, for me, I think is probably partly why. But you also get fascinated in the end by the growth patterns and the colors, and you start to see these really subtle. Like if I showed one of my normal non-reefing mates, one of my tenuous, and I'd be like, "What do you think of that?" They'd be like, "Yeah, it's all right." But I'd be, "No, look, can you see around the little coralite? There's a bit of purple there."
If you start to look at this torch coral, they're like, "Wow, look how wavy it is."
Exactly. Yeah. But I do think and it's not that you're more sophisticated because of it, but I think just because the longer you look at something, the more you appreciate things that are a little bit different.
I do. I know what you're saying. That there is definitely something with. So the reason I appreciate your tank is because I know what it takes to not because I think it's the nicest tank or visually the nicest tank, but because I know what it takes to make a tank like that. Mm-hmm. and the commitment it takes. You look almost offended that I said it, not because it's visually the nicest tank, but you know what I mean. There are tanks where the tanks which are often the most nicest to look at are actually a lot of LPS tanks, in my opinion. When you have Sean has the most amazing Trachophilia. Do you see it yesterday in my Instagram post? It was like the blue one. And you probably looked at it and went,
you told me about it though, but I didn't see it.
It was. I just thought this is definitely something that's like special. It was.
That's part of why I've set up the Fluval Evo, because I want it to be LPS only.
That was it there. Oh, you can't see it properly because of the thing, but that
looks a bit, but I'll take your word for it.
It's blue and red, and I know how you feel about my coral choices.
Your boring black and red. What's it called? Trackies.
Yeah.
Someone was saying earlier that where is it? Red Sea Regal Angelfish is awesome. Here we go. Red Sea are phenomenal, and I agree, Welsh Reefer, and I want one of those at the moment.
Yeah.
I was talking to you about it the other day.
Yes, and he's definitely correct. You only want one from the Red Sea. There is definitely a significant difference with the survival rate between the Red Sea ones, which are the yellow bellies, and I'm not sure where the other ones come from, but they have a grey belly, so you can clearly see there's a difference. The grey bellies,
they're Indo.
Yeah, I think that's where I think it is they come from. But do you ever get it in a fish shop where? See, I get this all the time, but this might be my character. Or my personality. Do you ever get it where you see someone and you know that they're about to make a mistake, but you don't know if to say anything? So a good example is I was in a Maidenhead and I saw someone buying one of those Regal Angelfish with the grey bellies, and I wanted to say to him, don't do that. Like, do not buy, because every time someone buys one with a grey belly, they replace it with another one with a grey belly. If people stop buying the grey belly ones, people will stop importing the grey belly ones. You see how it's like it's a cycle that gets worse and worse.
There have been times when I've thought about saying stuff, but I've thought it's probably a bit too rude to the shop. And this is a British thing.
Yeah. The problem is because you don't want to get banned from the shop, but you also don't want to make someone do something wrong, if you see what I mean.
I think you do well to. I wouldn't expect to be banned from the shop, but I might expect them to. They wouldn't like it necessarily, especially if they were doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Although I think it's a sliding scale, because if it's just a bad decision, I think I'd be more likely to say, do you know what, I'm going to leave. You don't need some random slaphead coming up to you saying that's a mistake.
Yeah,
and sticking his beak in where it's not wanted.
You wear your I'm Reef Dog t-shirt when you go to the fish shop?
No, I do not.
I kid you not, I saw a YouTuber the other day. He's a small YouTuber, and I shouldn't really say this because look, everyone needs the advertising. But he was in the fish shop at the same time as me, and he was wearing a t-shirt with his channel name on it and a big YouTube sign on the back.
That's hilarious.
I said, what was interesting is he obviously didn't know who I was. Which is why I'm offended. It was just, I actually said to the owner of the fish shop, should I wear a big YouTube symbol on me? But I thought it was an interesting choice, if you see what I mean. But
I mean, if you're I wouldn't do that anyway because it's just ridiculous. But if you're a small channel, I think you're even better, because all that does is invite. Sorry, mate. Who the hell are you?
Yeah, I know. You never look. He could be in the comments, so we have to be careful what we say. Remember, we were small once as well.
I wasn't wearing a t-shirt that said I'm a YouTuber.
You're so much harsher than I am.
You brought this up.
I know, but I just thought it was interesting. It's every so often you let out a little glimmer of your real personality, which I get to see more often than in the videos.
The thing is, I can be a little bit blunt sometimes, and it's not like and it's always always trying to be funny. I'm never trying. I'm not a nasty person. Yeah. And there's no side of me that's like, if people knew who I was really like, they'd be like, oh, I don't like him. I'm a nice person, but I do sometimes. I'm a little bit blunt for trying to be funny.
I think you speak your mind, don't you?
No, it's not. No. Don't paint me out to be like I speak my mind. I say things that I think are funny and that sometimes a bit blunt. But we'll move on.
I'm often laughing. Like, I'm not being invited back, am I? Because you're getting uncomfortable.
My least favourite saltwater shop is prestigereef.co.uk.
Yes, yeah. Like, all advertising is good advertising. So
do you have a favourite saltwater shop? Maidenhead, Crawley.
I go to Crawley for look. There are different reasons I go for different shops. The Maidenhead Crawley I think is best for fish, and you went the other day, and I think you said it was very, very good. Maidenheads all get tarnished with the same brush. I feel some of them are very good and some of them are very shit. So so now I'm speaking my mind. It's true, and the shit ones should get better, and then they won't be classified as the shit ones. As simple as I'm swearing too much, aren't I, for your channel? This is the real me, by the way. So yeah, I some of my older videos I showed you, didn't I, the other day, where I put inappropriate things in my old videos that you're shocked I got away with.
I don't remember that. I've got a terrible memory.
Do you remember I sent you the picture of what I put in one of my videos, and I still get comments on it? It was the one at the one that says, "Do you really want a fish tank? Do you really want a marine aquarium?" And I in the video I say, just be prepared.
Oh yes, the
your
bondage
partner
photo or something.
to be interested in a bit of 50 Shades of Grey, and I put a picture up. And at the time, I obviously thought it was totally acceptable. And then when I went back and looked at that picture and sent it to you, I went, "This is not acceptable."
But that was your most successful video, right?
No. I think that one's had 300,000. I think one of them's had.
Okay, but one of them.
Yeah. I think it was the third most successful. Yeah.
Because the second or third most watched video that I've made, like I used to do the intro where I'd be stood by my tank. Yeah. And I used to have this massive light with a massive softbox, and I forgot to set it up one day. And I went back up to edit it, and I was like, "Oh God, I forgot to turn the light on. Can I be bothered to go back down, set up the light, set up the camera, and do it all again?" I was like, "Do you know what? I just can't be asked to do it." So I left it, and that video blew up. And the one video where my lighting is awful, and it's literally amateur. It's like, why couldn't it be a different area? Favorite saltwater shop. So Maidenhead Crawley.
Yes, for fish. I don't buy coral from anywhere because I
can buy coral yourself.
Yeah, and yeah, so it all comes in from the ocean and all from other wholesalers or whatever. So going to shops for coral doesn't. I lost that for me, if you see what I mean. But then I get it all the time. I get it every day. I get that same feeling when I go to a wholesaler as I used to when I went to a shop. So
yeah, okay, it's just a different type of shop.
Saves me on petrol.
Yeah, indeed. Controversial opinion: soft corals are underrated. Discuss.
I know Jamie's Reef personally. I'm assuming it's the same person. Yeah, he's the person he was here the other day. Actually, I'm pretty sure that it's the same person. And I know he does have some soft corals in his tank. Jamie has a massive tank. This is one you can get in a wetsuit. That's how big his tank. To place corals, he has to get in it. If it's the same, Jamie. I know he has some soft corals. So it depends what soft corals they are. If it's just a leather coral, then no, I think that is rated correctly as not great.
Yeah.
If it's zoas of soft corals, you can get some really nice bright green cabbage coral. That's interesting. The gorgonians are sort of an interesting shape compared to other corals, like in terms of how spindly they are.
Yeah.
But you can definitely get some nice soft corals. So, but they also come with a downside as well. It's because obviously some of them release a toxin. So it depends on what you want.
Controversial opinion: Aquapora are overrated.
I totally agree.
So I don't agree because I bloody love Aquapora.
Aquapora is an acquired taste. I think that is for the. Look, as I said, this is going to maybe come out wrong, but it's like an elitist coral. They're the ones that if you really want a challenge, go for it. If you want something to look like Aquapora, get like a Milka Stylophora. It looks kind of similar. It's got the same sort of growth pattern. Look, maybe not to you, but to the average person, it looks like a pointy coral. You see what I mean? So there's plenty of nice SPS which don't come with the same hassle as Aquapora.
This is true.
So, and do I think those super colored ones with the saturated pictures are overrated? Definitely, because they're almost never like the pictures.
No, for sure, exactly, and I would agree with that. Shell Smuck was asking. Oh no, hang on, that wasn't it. Saying, where are you both based in England? I'm near Woking, and you're down in East Sussex somewhere, right?
No, I'm about half an hour from Brighton.
Okay.
just going back to just very, very quickly, I know you want to obviously move on. Although it's just got out of my head. It was about the acroporas. No, it's gone. Okay, don't worry. I don't know where it's gone, but it's just literally is gone.
Okay, fair enough. And Rich Wright says Maidenhead Windsor was good when I went. So it's now called Reefkeeper Moss End. And that's my logo. That's a closer shop to me. I go there. I was there twice this weekend. I go there every weekend, more or less. And I really like Reefkeeper Windsor, Reefkeeper Moss End. Snobbery, actually, on the point of Acropora. Seems to me there's a lot of snobbery in reefkeeping. I think there is, but I think most people aren't. But there are some people who are very snobby.
This will be a controversial one. I think that keeping a fish tank in your house gives some people a god complex. It definitely does, because they like the idea that they're doing something that other people think that they can't do. You see what I mean? It's a hobby that everyone goes, wow, I've heard that's really difficult to do. That's amazing. How do you do this?
Yeah.
And when you hear that enough times, it gives people this sense, like an inflated ego, which is why we're so awful.
But the thing is, when people say that to me, I go the opposite way. I try to play it down and be like, no, it's not that difficult. There are things that are complicated, but it's not as hard as you think. And then I start thinking, well, actually, running a tricky tank with tricky corals and fish is a bit more difficult. But at the basic level, it's not as hard as people make out. It's more difficult than fresh, of course, but that's a whole other.
True. You know how I feel about freshwater? Yeah, it is, Jamie.
Yeah. Have either of you visited Reef Dreams 2? I went a week or two after it had reopened.
Yeah.
And it was still kind of setting up. But yeah, I went there once. I'm going to go back when it's set up. But yeah. You haven't been yet, have you?
I've not been. I went to the original one.
Yeah.
I was actually planning to pop in on the way home yesterday, but I spent so long, obviously, at the Ocean Project that actually, look, this isn't an advertising thing for him. I was impressed when I went there, and I know you go there quite often.
Ocean Project, yeah.
Yeah, I like that they had the big tanks for fish rather than the little small ones.
Yeah, okay.
They had a very wide range of. I remember what the Acropora thing is. 1 second. Orange glasses, and I'll remember in a second.
Okay.
There was a wide range of different corals for different people. It's difficult. I think Sean believes that he's on the pricier end. I know he mentioned it in the last live stream. He's on the pricier end. I don't go to enough shops anymore to know what the pricier end is. If you see what I mean, because obviously I know the wholesale costs, so it's hard for me to judge. But there was a high end fish and low end fish, and there were high end corals and low end corals. But I thought it was set out quite well. I was quite impressed. I think there is still some. It's still a new shop, if you see what I mean, and he knows that, and there's some improvements he wants to do. I looked on the website. The website definitely needs some improving, and I think he knows that as well.
It only launched this week, but
that might be why.
I had a play with it, and I got frustrated pretty quickly.
Yeah, maybe it's an mistake. If I didn't know it was only a week, so
yeah.
But going back to the Acropora thing, and this links in with the shop. I saw people in the shop yesterday in the Ocean Project. They put the glasses on, as they do at mine. They put their orange glasses on, and yes, just those, and they go, wow, look at all these lovely SPS corals. I'm going to take that one. I'm going to take that one. I'm going to take that one. And then they put them in their tank and they look nothing like it. But that's because you're not wearing orange glasses at home.
Do you know what? So I've got no problem with the orange glasses thing. And it does show you some different colours. It shows it's cool. But what I do find, and I do the same when I go to shops, I look through the orange glasses as well. I don't just go, oh wow, it looks amazing under orange glasses. It's got to look good under just normal blue lights.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes tell myself, do you know what? I'll look through the orange glasses every now and then, but I do it very rarely.
Yeah.
And when I put the orange glasses on, one thing that is really good with orange glasses is it helps you see where there's flesh and where there's dying flesh.
That's interesting.
So when I put the orange glasses on, more often than not, instead of gawking at amazing colours, I find myself looking for problems. And like if I've got a skeleton, like I had one coral that I thought had died, stripped completely, and I saw a bit of flesh. I was like, ah, cool. So yeah, orange glasses are a bit stupid.
When you looked at the tank without the orange glasses, there were some specific pieces which stood out, but it's mostly the green ones. But
but the ones that when you take the glasses off and they still look awesome are the ones I go for.
Yeah,
I bought 2 from Sean a couple of weeks ago, Millies, and they're really nice. They look awesome with orange glasses, but white light, blue light, they look just really nice. So that for me is there aren't many like that, to be fair.
Yeah, that's the problem. Your tank looks amazing under white light. I think that's what stood out to me when I saw it, because it was
stop it.
It's as I said, I was quite impressed. I've never had a tank like yours. That's just the honest truth. I've kept corals similar to yours, but I've never had a display tank that looks like yours with all aquapora. I've had an mostly SPS tank, but never all aquapora. Or most. I know yours isn't. The feature pieces are aquapora, aren't they?
It's still mostly. But this is so people often ask me, am I going to upgrade because after a certain time you upgrade, and part of the reason I don't want to is because sometimes I think I'm a little bit scared. I think if I break that down, would I be able to do the same thing again? And I think probably the answer is yes. But I think for the first year or two, I bet it would look crap. And for the first couple of years, it was fine. But I didn't. I had stylos and Montes, and I didn't have the nicer corals for the most part.
Have you been following? I know you like to end this at 10, don't you? So we've only got a few minutes left. I don't know if you are ending it at 10 or not, but I know you usually do. Have you been following
thereabouts?
BRS's new series about starting a tank?
Yeah, they've got like 10 test tanks or something.
Have you watched the whole series? Because they've unlisted the videos. But you can watch. So they've only actually got to, you can actually see them. But if you look at the playlist, you can see all of them. And I've watched all of them, and it's the most interesting series I've seen in ages, because it's about all the different bacteria in our tanks and how all the ugly stages. It's like a battlefield. So they're all different things. So you can have an entirely sterile tank basically that has no ugly stage, providing nothing is put in it. So if you put a coral in it, all of a sudden you're introducing everything.
Yeah.
And so you can't really have. You could have a sterile fish-only tank in theory that has no diatoms or dinoflagellates or anything. But what was interesting is these sterile tanks, so the ones with the dry rock and the dry sand, performed the best at first, and then as soon as they put a coral in or anything that was, the tank couldn't handle it. And that's what I found, that when I had live rock and things like that originally, the tank cycled way better than when you get a new tank with dry rock and dry sand. It's almost like, because it's a sterile environment, it goes wild.
Do you know what the best what I find works best is, there are 2 things that I find work really well. The last few times I've set up a tank, I've done it with dry rock, load of bottle bacteria, but with one piece of live rock, a reasonable sized piece of live rock. And for some reason, I don't know why, when I set up the fluval, I didn't put a piece of live rock in there. And I've actually since bought a piece and put it in, because I was like, why the hell am I not? But I think that's a really good way of doing it. But with my water box frag tank, like 150 litre tank, that was all live rock, bare bottom, saucy, like your pictures, and but all live rock.
When you say like my pictures, you don't mean the ones I send you. You're talking about these. Sorry, just to clarify that.
Just to clarify that. But all live rock, and that did really well, except that I got dinos. But the good thing was, because I use it as a frag tank, I've got like an egg crate frag rack across the top. The dinos were just on that, so I threw that away, ran a load of UV in it, and it was fine. But that has worked really well. It's just that the only problem I had was when I took my eye off the ball, the nutrients bottomed out, and I got dinos. But
that I had a wildly different, and you saw it in the series with the Red Sea tank. I had a wildly different experience, and that's because I remember thinking at first, going, this tank is like it's been cycling for a month. It's perfect. There's no algae. There's nothing. And they put coral in it, and it's exactly the same thing that happened in the BRS thing. It went wild. And they also show that all these bacteria in a bottle and all these things, they do have some effect. But when you actually, so the bacteria is real and it is in there. But when you add other things, it can't cope. So those bacteria bottles.
Okay.
The best thing they found, it appears, they haven't finished the experiment yet, but they dosed it with all sorts of dinos and cyano and everything. They took everything and put them in every single tank. And the one that did the best, I think, was the live rock tank, because it obviously had all that stuff in there already. So it didn't do well at first, but then it was the quickest to clear up. And the ones that did the worst are the sterile tanks, and that's what people do these days. That's how people run their tanks. But the best one, I think, was when they used a rock which came from a dark sump, so that it didn't have any photosynthetic organisms on it. So it had all the bacteria, but none of because as soon as they put it in the light, obviously there was an explosion with the other tanks. But with those ones, they didn't have that explosion so much because there was no photosynthetic organisms on it.
That is exactly what I did with the fluval, the piece of live rock I got for the fluval, for that exact reason. Because it's going to have things like fan worms on it and that sort of stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
But if it's got if it's in a display tank somewhere, it's going to have some kind of dodgy algae on it or whatever. But I've not seen that. I didn't realise it was there. Shellmuck's Reef has asked, or Shellmuck's 2, sorry, has asked this a couple of times. Have you ever gone to TMC? I went there. There was an influencers day.
Yeah.
I hate the word influencer. But
I was not invited.
You weren't actually, no. But there was an influencers day when a load of Instagrammers and YouTubers went, and I went. I didn't make a video about it because I didn't think anyone would watch it, or a few people, very small people.
Yeah.
But I then got Brian, the CEO of TMC, on a live stream, and he was really interesting. Loads of stuff about captive bred and wild caught and all that. But yeah, I've been into it.
To be fair, they did call me to say that they were doing it. And they said, obviously, because I'm a shop, it's a conflict of interest, which I understand. So,
Alex, have you been checking the bottom silicon seams? A lot of Red Sea tanks have been breaking over their bottom as per Facebook post. Have they really though? This seems to come up quite a lot. That all Red Sea tanks fail, and the silicon bust. I think that's a myth. Not that it doesn't happen. But I think that happens far less than people think, because they sell millions of the bastards.
I was going to say, my question to you is, how many Red Sea tanks are sold and how many Red Sea tanks fail? So I had this conversation. I went to dinner with the management team of Red Sea. I went at Nuremberg, and I had this conversation, and they said, look, yes, it's true. Some of our tanks do, they do, obviously, there is with the seams sometimes, but what percentage of those what they say is you see people go mental on social media.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks it's a really big deal, but the reality is there might be like 100,000 sold and maybe 3 go. So if you look at the percentage wise, it's like when I sell coral, some of those corals will die in the post. That's just it. It's happened. It actually happened the other day. So my death count has gone from like 15 corals of 3,000 to like, I think 20 corals at 3,000. But it's how people deal with it. And I actually think, and I don't work with Red Sea or anything, but usually they seem to get on it. They hit those things quite hard and they deal with the problem if it is their fault. Sometimes it's like a second-hand tank though, is the other thing. It's like if you're buying a second-hand tank of any sort and it bursts, you're moving a tank. You have to realize you're moving a piece of glass held together with a bit of silicon.
If you've ever moved IKEA furniture from one house to another, it doesn't like it at all. It falls apart quite easily. And obviously an aquarium is better built than that. But the point is that things don't like being moved, things like that. But anyway, I think that's it's not a myth, because they do break. And actually they brought out their XXL series, and I think the 700 litre one or whatever had a problem because the stand wasn't strong enough. But I think they fixed it. I think that that's people make far more of a fuss about that than actually is the reality, because like you say, they sell 1 million tanks
and then 10 of them burst, and it sounds bad. Whereas Waterbox over here might sell 1,000 tanks, and none of them burst because they've only sold 1,000.
I think you this might not be the right saying, but you know about walking a mile in someone else's shoes or whatever. You have to know the whole story to know what. I would like to know the percentage of tanks, if you see what I mean, before
completely.
If all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, it's 30% of tanks, then you go, okay, there's a problem. If you found out it's 0.00001%, it's just how many people have there'll be plenty of people that buy a BMW, and you'll expect this brand new BMW to be amazing, and then a month later it breaks down. You see what I mean? And some people will have it for 10 years and it won't break down. But that's just what happens.
Basically, everything breaks.
Yes.
Uncontroversial opinion. Ryan is an excellent guest and should come on more often.
Silence from both our
the bad news is, so I've got guests booked in for the next 2 weeks.
Obviously,
inferior guests, of course. Although I'll tell them that they're superior.
Who are they? No, you probably won't tell me. You'll tell me afterwards.
I'll tell you that. So next week is Queen of Reef.
Oh yeah.
And the week after that is Andrew Sandler.
I know. I saw actually on one of your things. I was surprised that you you brought me back instead of having him on.
So I booked it. I just asked him when he was free.
Oh, okay.
So and I wanted to get Stephanie on for a while, so I asked her as well, and we just booked a date. But yeah, no, I enjoy these live streams, and we've gone on over 2 hours, which is against my rule. But they're good fun.
Yeah, I as I said, for a long time.
Oh, here we go. This is the truth.
Yeah. There's always something, isn't there?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how for so long I avoided doing these with you, and now it's like I actually quite enjoy them. So
I know, yeah. And this one, I feel like this one's gone off the rails because I thought this was going to be a guided one where we get into the weeds on stuff and talk about it loads. This like 20% of this has been about the subject, and the rest has just been talking. But I kind of like that. And actually, that was the other thing I was going to say about live streams and live streaming with another person.
Yeah.
What I found is when I first had guests on, if I'm looking at the comments all the time, and this is why I don't, and I know I miss comments. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm looking at the comments all the time, you'll be talking. I'll be like, yeah.
No, I know. See,
you'll be saying something interesting or worthwhile responding to, and I'm like, oh, what's he saying about Red Sea?
See, even I feel rude when I'm reading the comments and you're talking because I know you know when I'm doing it. Because if I'm doing this, you can tell I'm reading, and I can tell when you're doing it as well. You guys need some backgrounds of farm coral tanks.
You guys need some backgrounds of the farm tank collars. I like my pulsing xenia background. So.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I've sat here for 2 hours and 10 minutes and not even noticed it.
So Steve who says I should get David Saxby on. He'd be a really cool guest. Yeah. He would chew my ears off for the whole time. He's a talker, isn't he? He's a very interesting guy. But I wouldn't be getting to bed before midnight. Oh, actually, do you know what? Get Coral Euphoria on. So yes. I did a video a while ago when it was called my controversial opinion on your favorite YouTubers.
Yeah, but I wasn't on it.
You weren't on it, no, because no one's favorite.
I'm not your favorite or anyone else's.
But really, what it was talking about the underappreciated YouTubers or the most important ones, and Coral Euphoria was number one. And it's funny because I'm a nerd with stats and that sort of stuff. I looked up the stats on all of the channels that I featured, the top 5.
Yeah.
For the couple of weeks after, they all had a massive bump in subscribers.
Did they? If you do say so yourself.
If I do say so myself, but they all had a serious bump, like 400% increase on some cases. Really? And with Coral Euphoria, that probably translated into some sales as well, maybe. And he messaged me. He's a really nice guy. He messaged me and just said, "Look, I can't send you any corals because you're in England, but if I can do anything for you, let me know." Yeah. And actually, I've recently been thinking I should get him on because that'd be really cool.
His videos are amazing. It's you are right. It's one of the most underappreciated channels. And although I say obviously I like your tank, his tank is nicer than yours. But his tank is amazing. And they're quite entertaining, his videos as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they're absolutely brilliant. They're really educational, and he knows his stuff better than most people on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're fascinating because he's I'm not looking at anyone, but they're really interesting as well. And he does it. He's very creative, so he does them in a style that I could never recreate. And but they must take a long time.
Yes, yeah, no, I know, but I don't think he does them that often, does he?
No, once every few months. But but he does well because so this is I did a video about a live stream about being how to be a YouTuber. It's not you don't just have to do every week, and the algorithm loves it. He can upload every 3 months, but do an absolutely blinding video, and his videos still do better than most of my videos.
Yeah.
So it's not just about churning out any old rubbish,
aren't they? They're like soothing to watch.
Yeah. Another question that's been asked 1,000 times, and Shell Smuck, you do this. You post the same question until I read it. So I'm sorry for missing them. Do you have a Discord server?
Do
you know what a Discord server is?
I don't know what Discord server is. What is that?
So people, it's like a chat. It's like a forum kind of app kind of thing.
It's called WhatsApp.
Yeah, exactly. I do have one, but it's empty, and I don't know. I don't really know what it is. I want to do something with it at some point. I'm trying to figure out how to work it and how it would be good.
Do you get? This is probably a question I should ask you privately, but you obviously get loads of messages from people the same as me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not find that hard? I just think the concept of having a Discord server as well, I just couldn't handle it.
That's the thing, and one of the reasons I've not started a Discord server properly is because of time. There's just no way. But I get messages on Instagram in particular all the time.
Yeah.
And I ignore almost all of them. I sometimes read them, but the thing is, because someone might be asking a question that would take 2 minutes to reply.
Yes.
And you would think, and I'm sure there are some people who message me and think, rude bastard, he's not replied.
But you don't reply to me.
Exactly. But if I'm going to invest time in Reef Dog as a whole, I've got to think, how am I going to do that? Because if I was replying to all my messages, even all the comments on YouTube, all messages on Instagram and all that, I would do nothing but YouTube. It's hard enough as it is. It takes up enough time as it is. So I can't do that. And I could just be sitting on the sofa, just chilling out and still replying to messages, but I need time away from it, downtime. So that's why I don't. And there are sometimes people will ask a question that if I was going to give, I could just reply and say, Radion, mate.
Because the question always comes back.
Well, not even that. It's to give a proper answer. Someone might say, what lights should I get? Or can I keep someone messaged the other day and said, can I keep a tang in a 300-litre tank?
Yeah.
And I was like, what tang? Why there's a million questions. How old is your tank? Or what light should I get? There's a million questions you want to answer. So if I just ping back a message and say, can I keep a tang in a Red Sea Reefer 300 tank? Yeah, probably it's fine. But really, you need to give it a longer. Exactly.
Yes, and
exactly.
It's funny because obviously people don't see this side, and I think sometimes this side is actually interesting for people to see.
Yeah, completely.
How hard our lives are.
I know, yeah.
But it is true, because do you ever get the message where you get a message and then you don't reply, and then you get a second message going, "You're a bastard"?
Basically. No, actually, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, I have had that. Have you ever had any pictures of penises sent to you?
Only yours.
No, that was the female YouTubers actually do.
Yeah, so no, I've never had anything like that, and unsurprisingly, nothing from females from female as well. But no, there's a guy, what's it, Clint Coral Reef on Instagram. Who
you're about to say he does it, because you should probably clarify quickly.
No, he works at a local fish shop near me. I've met him a couple of times, and he does it with his missus. And whenever she posts a photo of her next to the tank, like, she gets private messages, just inappropriate comments.
No, I know.
And a lot of female reefers get that. So, and well, you would know that because of Miss Orward's tank and all that.
I think I told you once, someone sent the picture, and then I went onto their Facebook, found all their relatives, and then emailed them back. I messaged them back saying, which one of your relatives would you like me to send this picture to first? And then they came back going, please don't do it. Please don't do it. The change in someone when that real fear sets in.
Genuine fear.
No. Yeah, good times, good times.
But yeah, I think, but that's So Discord servers, no, and the reason is because time and just time is just is precious, and I don't have enough of it.
Yeah.
I think we're at a natural stopping point.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's late.
You have to be tucked in bed by now, don't you? I've still got 4 hours to go. So before
you're up late always, and you go to sleep late.
So
anyway.
I live the life of a bachelor. Do I want so?
Exactly right. Have whatever right you want on your wall.
Yeah, true.
But thank you very much for joining me again, Ryan. This conversation, I thought we'd go differently, and I thought we'd get into it a bit more and stop being random. But I still had a good time. So
I think I had a good time. You had, hopefully, people had a good time, and I did. We got the message across. Hopefully, people are going to be nicer to their fish.
Basically, be nice to your fish.
Yeah,
because they need you.
Okay.
All righty. Well, thank you everybody for watching as well. I will be back next week with Queen of Reef, so join for that, and I will see you all again soon. Cheers, guys.
See you later.